Good morning, members. Welcome to this last full council meeting for 2022. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the council website for public listening. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. Right, speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be in the chat function if it's intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting so we can keep track on whether the meeting's quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, if you could please provide reference to the page numbers so that everybody can follow along. If you could focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation, that would be helpful. We do have scheduled break for around 12 noon for lunch, which will be assessed as we proceed through the agenda, and I intend calling comfort breaks to allow BSL interpreters time to rest throughout the agenda. Okay, so before we move on to the first item on the agenda, we've got some excellent achievements to celebrate. First of all, I'd like to congratulate and welcome Councillor Richard Marsh, who was successful in the by-election held last week for the Mid-Galloway and Wigton West by-election. Congratulations. I don't know if we should clap, but welcome to the council. Second, as some of you may be aware, the Devil's Porridge Museum at Eastriggs was crowned the best visitor attraction experience in the west of Scotland and has a great chance to be voted Scotland's best day out. Voting closed on 3rd of December, and the winner will be announced at the Scottish Thistle Awards national final on February 9th, 2023. So good luck to the Devil's Porridge. Thirdly, Dumfries and Galloway social worker Susie Rook is the Social Worker of the Year. Susie was awarded the accolade at an awards ceremony in Glasgow. The Scottish Social Services Awards recognise and celebrate the very best examples of practice and in social work and social care across Scotland. She was nominated the Social Worker of the Year category, a highly contested category which recognises the very best examples of individuals demonstrating their deep commitment to the profession and going above and beyond in their role. Following congratulations from Social Work Committee, we would like to congratulate Susie on behalf of the whole council. So well done, Susie. I think that's probably worth a clap as well. Fourth, our waste team was recently shortlisted for an APSI award as the most improved waste collection authority, and although we didn't win, we have improved our recycling rates by 10%, and that's from 30% in 2020 to 40% in 2021, which is a great improvement, and I'm sure we appreciate that progress that's being made. So well done to the waste team. Okay. Set a precedent here with the clapping. Okay, so and fifth, Solway Skating Club and their 3 synchronised skating teams recently attended the Skate London Synchro Opens, where they won bronze, silver and gold medals. All the Dumfries teams are current reigning British champions, the first ever Scottish club to achieve this. The Solway teams will head to the Britannia Cup in Nottingham in January to defend their title. In addition to this, Solway Stars have been awarded the British Performance Squad status, and they will make a play this season to take the British Championship title and be awarded the chance to compete as Team GB in the World Championships in France next March. So I think it's lovely to see them being rewarded for such efforts, and we hope that the communities of Dumfries will be right behind them, cheering them on at the newly instated Trophy d'Écosse competition tomorrow on the 16th of December at Dumfries Ice Bowl. So well done to them. Councillor Drysdale?
I would like to add, if possible, some other successes. Is that allowable? Or do we need to add them to the agenda?
I've got one more, but if you want to come in now with one, that would be great. Thank you.
I'll let you go first, if you want. You're on a roll, Stephen, you're on a roll.
Okay, so the final one on my list anyway is the south of Scotland has been named as one of the Lonely Planet's best in travel destinations for 2023. The travel publication revealed that the region, which covers Dumfries and Galloway and Scottish borders, is one of only 2 UK destinations and 30 worldwide to make the annual list. The south of Scotland has been named in the Learn category alongside Manchester, New Mexico, Dresden, El Salvador and Marseille. The region's history and culture make it the ideal place for delving into the past to learn more about the iconic figures such as Robert Burns and Sir Walter Scott. And I'm sure we can all agree this is a fantastic recognition for the area and a welcome boost to our local economy and tourism. Well done ourselves. Councillor Drysdale.
Thanks very much for letting me in. I'd just like also to thank the women's rugby team in D&G. This is Stewartry Sirens. They have just won the Women's National One League, which is a brilliant accolade. So they are delighted. So I think we thank them too. Congratulate. And also, I don't know if anyone's heard of Lewis Martin, but he's doing brilliantly with his cycle cross, and he has just won the Scottish Cyclocross Series. So I think we should congratulate him as well. Thank you.
Okay, and I think we've got Ivor Hislop on the chat function want to come in as well. Ivor?
Chair, it's also to mention that Dumfries Ice Bowl has succeeded as well in the curling front. We have 2 young teams have actually this year secured the Scottish Championships. Faye Henderson for the girls team, she along with her team, and we've got Robin Monroe from Stranraer that plays in that team. They are currently out in Loja, I think you pronounce it, in Finland, representing Scotland in the World Bees. If they win there, they then will travel to Füssen in Germany in end of February to represent Scotland at the World A's. And the boys, Team Oran Carson, 2 lads from Dalbeattie and 2 from my ward. One of them's related, so maybe I need to declare an interest. They won the Scottish Juniors and they will represent Scotland in the World A's in Füssen in February.
Excellent. Thanks, Ivor, and I'm sure we'll be able to keep track of their progress as the months progress. And I think it's testament to this region, I think, that we're able to actually celebrate some successes and good news in an otherwise very challenging time. Okay, so moving on to the tabled agenda for today. If I can go to the Cedrant apologies, and Vlad, can you provide any details of that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, members. I can confirm we have received apologies from Councillor McGregor and Councillor McCammon. We have 28 members present in the hall, and we have 12 members present on the Teams platform. Members not present at the start of the meeting, Councillor Gusty.
Thank you, Vlad, and I can confirm my agreement to the participation of those members recorded as participating remotely. That takes us on to declarations of interest. Do any members have a declaration? Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. I have a declaration of interest in agenda item 13, and I have sought advice from the Standards Commission, who have said that I would be best just leaving the meeting when that's being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Scobie?
Yes, Chair, same in item 13. I'm a member of the IGB, but I will remain in the room, exercising my right as in my lobbying capacity, as the motion outlines.
Thank you, Willie. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor McFarlane.
Yes, as Vice Chair of the IJB, I have a declaration of interest in the item number 13, but I don't believe it is such that I would have to leave the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any indications in the chat, so I'll move on to the minutes of the meeting for 13th of September 2022. Are we happy to approve the minutes? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. It was really seeking clarification from Vlad about the validity of Linda as leader of the Labour group. Could you confirm if you've got a signed document of authority that she's able to participate within the coalition?
think for today, well, I'll pass over to yourself, Vlad, but if you've got any comment to that.
First and foremost, I think we've got an agenda that we're going to follow. I'm happy to take any questions such as that that are administrative in nature out with this meeting.
With respect, if the leader does not have authority, then do we actually have a proper administration that's going to take forward this agenda that we're talking about?
Okay, so I think full council has appointed the positions that are seated around this table. So I think from that point of view, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where we're at as a council. So I don't think that's a very helpful comment at this time, Councillor Wood. But as Vlad has offered, he can pick up any questions about that after this meeting. Linda, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Thanks, Convener. I'm not quite sure where Councillor Wood's coming from, but I think it would be helpful if you want to raise that issue, you could raise it after the meeting. I'm quite happy to discuss it with you if you have any issues. Thank you.
Once again, with respect, I can only follow what's happening within the media, and I'm sure we're all aware of. There seems to be some concern as to, with regards the leader of the Labour group in the Scottish Parliament, as to whether if they are in agreement with her participating within this coalition. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, well, thanks for the comments. But I think we have an agenda in front of us. This is Dumfries and Galloway Council. This isn't the media or any other organisation. I think we need to focus on our business, and that's what we're going to do. So if we move on to item 4, which is the minute of the meeting of the 29th of September, are we happy to approve those minutes? Okay, thank you. That takes us on to the minute of the meeting of the Joint Full Council and the Youth Council on the 3rd of November. Can we approve those minutes? Okay, thank you. And that brings us to item 6, which is the Council's Inclusive Leadership Arrangements Progress Update Report by Chief Executive. This is where we have an update on the progress made by the new Inclusive Council Leadership Arrangements since their establishment in June 2022, and it asks us to agree the next steps. Dawn Roberts, Chief Executive, is here along with Harry Hay as Head of Neighbourhood Services and Liz Manson, Community Planning and Engagement Manager, and they're available on MS Teams to assist members with any questions. So we've got the arrangements in front of us. Can I invite members' questions and contributions, please? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Convener. Since this has been established, it's heading in the direction of a hope, an inclusive council. But in a lot of ways, from my and my group's perspective, it looks to be almost a slightly exclusive council in that if we want to move forward on an inclusive basis, then should we not be considering proportionality on senior council positions and taking things forward in that direction? Because I know with the addition of Councillor March there, we now have 40% of the elected members in the chamber, and I understand that our role is, as perhaps is spelt out in item 3.2 about effective opposition. Well, you know, if you have an administration and an opposition, is that not by very definition not inclusive?
Thank you. I mean, I take on board the feedback. I think that this council agreed to appoint a slate, if you like, of senior councillors, and that was agreed. In terms of the working arrangements, the leadership arrangements, this details, I suppose, the progress in terms of the forum or the fora we've set up to actually allow leaders panel where those types of issues can be discussed, the budget panel where we can all feed into the budget, the business bureau, and I don't know if Chief Exec, if you want to maybe add, because obviously you've helped, I suppose, enable this happen so that elected members can participate in this way. So would you be perhaps able to say a few words? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I mean, as you indicated in introducing the item, members agreed after the election to establish these inclusive leadership arrangements through the Leaders Panel, Budget Panel and Business Bureau. And through that, you also agreed as a council to have a particular focus on a policy priority around cost of living and a service priority around roads maintenance. And they have featured very strongly in the discussions of the leaders panel, supported very well by officers. And we have Harry Hay in the room and Liz Manson in the room, who have been the leads on those two items. But we've also broadened the discussion through the leaders panel at members' request to have other topics of discussion, most notably transport, but also planning capacity and BSL support. So we have broadened the discussion to issues of kind of common interest across the council. And through the budget panel, very helpful discussions around opportunities for the future, recognising the significant challenges the council faces in terms of its finances, but looking at how we can become financially sustainable in the long term. And so very, very helpful discussions. And then through the Business Bureau that Vlad has facilitated, the opportunity for members to come together and review council business and ways of operating. So the report hopefully provides a good summary of the current position in relation to those arrangements 6 months on. And so the proposal is that we would take a further report, bring a further report forward after February Council to assess where we are and set out priorities moving forward, because by then we'll have the Council plan agreed, hopefully, and we'll also have the budget and medium-term financial strategy agreed. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks, Chief Exec. Malcolm, I hope that helps address what the purpose of this report's about.
Oh, very much so. I understand it. I mean, the way it's been set up, as you point out, was agreed, and we're working through it. As part of the budget panel, I'm quite happy to be involved in these discussions. I have no issue with that. I'm merely saying about the way forward and the representation. That's what I'm discussing. But as far as this report's concerned, it is discussing where we are now.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, it's on page 31, 3.4.2, and again in 3.4.3. It has to do with the cost of living crisis and really to establish a direct line for people suffering from hardship and can he access payments for their gas and so forth and so on. I really seek your guidance whether we take it on this item or the next one under the council plan.
Yeah, I think in terms of this is more about the if you like, the structures we've got in place to try and take the business forward. The council plan maybe is probably a better forum to actually get into the detail of how we actually deal with cost of living now and in future. So, but I do take your point that there's a bit of. I think we all agreed back in when we first started that cost of living was one of our highest priorities, and I think we've tried to address that. We've brought things forward through the budget panel, for example, and it's been aired at the Leaders Forum as well. And I think we're very much aware with the launch of the new council, cost of living support on the council website that it's a key priority. We have to work with partners to try and address it because, as we'll find out later in the agenda, a lot of that comes down to housing, it comes down to other services as well. So, but I think in terms of the cost of living, the detail of that's something we'll continually try and work through. But I'm just wondering if Liz might want to speak to that just now in terms of that assurance for Councillor Scobie that we are actually looking at emerging cost of living initiatives as well as progressing the one we already have in train. So that's giving you a wee bit of time to get to your seat, Liz. But so if you'd like to help Councillor Scobie on that one.
Thank you very much. So yes, as you'll see in the appendix to this report, we have done a lot of work about mapping what support is available to people right now. And I think in addition to the investments that members agreed as part of the budget process last February, and indeed ongoing budgets, throughout the course of this year, you have allocated additional funding through the Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee and the Communities Committee. So you will see that there is quite a significant number of supports and in different services in different ways to support people right now. The helpful discussions that we've had in the leaders panel and the budget panel are about looking to the future, looking at the longer term, about what's likely to be coming up in the year ahead. And you'll see in the pages in the appendix where we've put in italics some of the suggestions that have come through from the leaders panel and the budget panel that we're looking at, and members will see that coming to you with, obviously, with costings attached to that, so that you can decide which of these you want to take forward in the new financial year. But I think, as I say, that the officers and members in these discussions have been very clear about the importance of supporting the different groups. So there's people experiencing poverty and inequalities, which has had the most of the attention, quite rightly, but then also looking at the other dimensions that the cost of living increases are affecting. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Convener. In terms of the paper, I think this is actually something to celebrate. What we've had is 6 months of doing what I would say politics differently, which we agreed at the May 2022 full council, the first full council. We agreed to take this forward and work inclusively with all political parties and none for the people of Dumfries and Galloway, which I think has been extremely successful. I think we should focus on this as an element of success as opposed to anything else. Naturally, this will give rise to media speculation, but as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't be using media speculation as a template in terms of taking things forward. So I think we should be collectively celebrating this. I'd like to put that down in terms of how we've done our business at council. It's about local politics, about local democracy, doing politics differently, and actually listening to the electorate, the people of Dumfries and Galloway, who asked us to work in this way. So I think we're doing quite a good job so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dorward. And I think, obviously, ideally we'll get to a point where we can endorse the good progress in Recommendation 2.1. Councillor Brodie and then Councillor Jameson.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I think that we are making progress on the priorities of the Council as a result of our inclusive leadership. The independent group favoured all 4 parties to come together at the start, but that was not a practical issue which everybody could agree. And we are, and we're trying to make it as inclusive as possible for the Conservatives. And congratulations for their victory in Mid Galloway during last week. So we are making progress on the key priorities on tackling the roads maintenance. We're actually getting to grips with that problem, and I'm forming a plan over the medium term, short, medium and long term for the roads maintenance, because that is a priority for our constituents. We're making progress on the cost of living, although it's slow progress because inflation is really starting to bite, but we have a plan in place. The independent group are pushing for a single call line where people that are struggling can get access to services quickly, and I hope that we can push that forward, because at the moment our call system, which people go into, it's not the best way of getting help and advice, because at time it takes to get assistance. So that's something that we need to be working on in the future. We're also addressing problems which have been inherent in the system for a long time, like the planning system, where we need to get more resources in to support applications, to support local people who make applications and businesses who may be held back because of the time it takes to get the assistance. So we are making the progress, and we're very pleased that we're working with all the system we have. We're working with all the 5 parties. We include the Liberal Democrats as well as across the system. So we are doing our best to include you, and my door's always open. As I said, the guy in the Conservative administration says in the cabinet, our door is always open. Right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the kind offer, Councillor Brodie. I'm sure you'll get taken up on that. Councillor Jameson.
Yeah, I would just like to endorse what Linda Dorward said. As a new councillor, I've only been here 6 months, and I'm fortunate enough to be on the budget panel and vice chair of education, and the collaboration across the parties for me has been really quite refreshing. I came in here with an open mind, but there's been good consultation, good collaboration, and the budget panel has been very much non-partisan. There's been
good opinions expressed by all parties and good discussions, positive discussions, and a lot of that's fed back and forward to the Education Committee. So there's a good flow of information back and forward and across. So I would just like to support the recommendations and agree with everything Linda said.
Thanks, Councillor Jameson. That's very helpful, and I think that's the whole point of that inclusive type of working, so we can actually get the best out of everybody. Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Chair. It's when you look at some of the things that are in Appendix, I think it's Appendix 1, a lot of it is dealing with giving support as is. But how are we looking as a council to actually take that a step further, and rather than relying on welfare funds, etc., how are we attracting quality jobs to this area so that people can find a way out of poverty, rather than just, you know, maintaining them in sort of where they are? I think I would rather see, you know, I saw on Facebook, was it what do you call a guy from Tesla? Is it Elon Musk? Was looking for a factory in Britain. Did we as a council promote the Chapel Cross site as an opportunity? Because A, it's close to the main trunk routes. It's got electricity coming in, you know, it's got good grid connection. Did we take the opportunity to actually just say to them, look, we've got a site that could suit you, you know, and these would be jobs that would be valuable jobs and possibly increase the economy in our area and across our area? Was that opportunity taken? That's something I think we should be looking as a leadership group to do, is to actually bring in economic development as part of this poverty strategy as well.
Thanks, Councillor Hislop. I mean, I wasn't personally aware of an offer that we made to Mr Musk. I know he's been in the news for a number of reasons about various business deals around Twitter, for example, and I'm sure he's very successful in those moves. But I think in terms of what you're talking about, we have to move forward, and I think part of that's in the council plan, because there's that was one of the 4 main priorities, is about the economy and how we support that in the region, and I think we'll come on to that in the next item if that's okay. But there is in one of the appendices, I think it's page 41, appendix section 4, if you like, in terms of businesses and social enterprise. And as you say, there are pieces of work there which are sort of current, but I think this is where we have to move to, is actually how do we transform how we work as a council to support the economy in the best way possible. And I think the council plan allows us that vehicle to take that forward and set that out as the course we're going to chart through these times to make sure we make the most of these opportunities. So I don't know if you maybe want to come back in the next item to maybe raise that, Ivor?
It was just something within, I think it was the earlier pages, increasing income. That might be something that we should be looking at, is how do we get better quality jobs into the area to actually do it. And it was just to add a bullet point in there, maybe not to actually change it, but that's something, a wee suggestion of how we could maybe help people out of poverty.
Thanks. So which page would you prefer that to be included in, Ivor? Is that for the council plan, or is it in the appendix for economy?
Well, it was just within page 36, people experiencing poverty, increasing income, current initiatives, and the suggestions I think that would be put forward. I think Miss Manson said under the italics, maybe in there, looking at how we could bring in better jobs, better quality jobs, etc., so that we could get higher pay. Just something to work on rather than, you know, or to discuss back at the leadership group.
Yeah, I'm sure that can be picked up. Liz, I don't know if you want to maybe come in on that one. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, the papers here are set in the context of a whole raft of strategies and plans that you have. And Councillor Hislop's point is very much an element of the regional economic strategy. So what we've pulled out here are perhaps things that there's specific budget allocated to, because this is very much being set in the context of a budget proposal for you. coming to you in February next year. So yes, there is work ongoing as part of the wider regional economic strategy about attracting business, about making Dumfries and Galloway an attractive place to do business. What we'd picked out here was some of the specific employment schemes that have got dedicated funding, but very happy to speak to colleagues in economic development and see if there's something specific that we can add into the emerging proposals as part of the budget development proposal.
Thanks, Liz, and I hope that's helpful, Councillor Hislop. I'll now bring in Archie Dryborough, Councillor Dryborough. Oh no, sorry, I've just noticed the chat. It says he wants to withdraw. So hopefully that's addressed that particular concern. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, it's just on that particular point. I mean, we could delve into minute levels of detail, and I appreciate that this is a high level. But we do have the local employability and skills partnership, of which DWP and various partners that we work in. So just to reassure the councillor that that work is ongoing, and certainly we just had our meeting last week, of which I do chair. So I'm happy to share out the details of the work that the local employability partnership are doing as well, because we are looking at exactly these issues in addressing unemployment across the region. Thank you.
That's helpful, Councillor Hagman. Thank you. I'm sure that'll be welcomed. I don't see any other hands up in the room or online. So if we can go to the I beg your pardon, Councillor Dougie Campbell.
Thanks, Leader. Apologies, this is just a technical issue. Members and officers on this side of the room are having difficulty hearing the members speaking on the other side of the hall. I just wonder if the technical people could maybe turn up the speakers a wee bit in the hall so that we can hear. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll do our best to make sure we're better heard. Thank you. So if we go to the recommendations, 2.1, we've been asked to endorse, and there's already been a few endorsements in terms of the establishment and work of the new inclusive council leadership arrangements as set out. Happy to agree. Thank you. And then 2.2, I think there's been a few comments there basically on the support already available from our council in relation to the policy priority of cost of living increases. So we're happy to accept that we've done that. Thank you. And 2.3 is to note the progress in relation to the service priority of roads maintenance as set out in paragraph 3.4.4. And finally, 2.4, agree to receive a further report on the work of the new fora following the agreement of the council plan and the setting of the council budget in February 2023 as referenced in paragraph 3.5. Good. Thank you. Okay, that takes us on to the council plan, item 7. This report presents a draft council plan for 2023 to 28, and that's, as members will be aware, following a programme of involvement for elected members in its development. There's also a draft mandate for public, stakeholder and staff consultation on the draft council plan, and that's presented there to seek views from stakeholders on the plan. Heather Carnachan, Performance and Improvement Manager, Stuart Hamilton, Ward Manager, and Anna Toot, Workforce Engagement Manager, are available on Teams to assist members with any questions. So over to members for any questions and contributions. What I might do actually is invite Dawn in to speak as Chief Executive on this. So Dawn, on you go.
Thank you, Convener, and I just want to acknowledge that this is a significant milestone for the Council to bring forward the draft Council plan. This is a key document for the Council, for our staff, for our stakeholders, for our communities, setting out a vision for the next 5 years, high-level priorities and principles for the Council. And you'll see in here the reflection, hopefully, of all of the engagement that we have supported over the recent months through member workshops. And I'd like to thank members for contributing to that work because it's brought us a much richer process in terms of the input and contributions that have led to this draft being before you today. Obviously, it is draft, and so there's the opportunity for it to be further amended following consultation. Consultation is really important, and so the mandate for consultation is included in the appendix for your consideration. And I just wanted to say as well that this will lead to the production of annual deliverables, annual delivery plan. So instead of including lots of detail in our high-level council plan, it is purposefully at high level, and it will allow us year on year to set out the specific deliverables, the specific actions to deliver on that council plan and take account of changing context, changing opportunities, new requirements as we move forward. So a significant milestone, I think, for today in bringing this forward. And I'd like to thank all of the staff who've been involved in the work, supporting the member workshops and in the production of the plan. And I know that Heather, Anna and Stuart are online if there are any specific questions about any element of the process. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chief Exec. And no, I have to say that just even looking at it, it's very much a pick up and read type document that doesn't go into too much detail, obviously, for the reasons you've just set out. But hopefully members will be able to come in and contribute to what could be a very good thing to send out to the public for their feedback. I've got Councillor Hagman first, then Councillor Hislop, and then Councillor Dougie-Campbell.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, my thanks to all the officers for pulling this together, for assisting all 43 elected members to come together. We worked in hybrid, so everybody was able to access the different workshops that we put through. So I think it is really useful. It is high level, as has been pointed out, and certainly this phrase annual deliverables is something that I look forward to seeing. It's possibly a bit remiss, perhaps should have brought it up in the previous item, because there's no mention as to how those deliverables will be taken forward. Will they go through the Budget Bureau? Will they go, or the Budget Panel, sorry, or the Business Bureau, or will it go through leaders? Because obviously that's the type of finite detail that members of public will be actually wanting to know. I do welcome the fact that on page, let me get this, page 11 of the actual plan, I think it is page 59, there's reference to the impacts of floods, our contribution to net zero, and the council being a low carbon organisation. Certainly I've been asked why we don't have a climate champion, and I think one of the aspirations was the climate emergencies, and our response to the climate emergency should be mainstreamed. So I think this has captured really well within the plan, so I really welcome that. In terms of a specific question I've got, that's around the consultation. And for those of you who know me, I do like a consultation mandate. We've got that, which is great to see. And it's got a reference here for the website and dates. But how are we going to be advertising this? Are we contacting all our community councils? Are we putting it out in social media? Are there going to be any ward events? Because it's all very well having a consultation, but if the public don't know the consultation is taking place, and for those who maybe don't have access to online, how will they be able to feed into that? Because I think it's really important that we work in an inclusive way that every member across our community can feed in. So, you know, I'm just wondering if that's been thought out. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hagman. So in terms of the consultation mandate itself, obviously there's a bit of detail about exactly how that'll work, as you've described. So I'm just wondering who would be best placed to address that. I think it's potentially Stuart Hamilton. Are you able to assist Councillor Hagman with the consultation mandate? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Hagman. In terms of the overall communications plan that accompanies the consultation, there is a robust communications plan associated with it, and we have kind of recognised that the consultation will launch as we just head into a festive period, where perhaps members of the public, citizens and our stakeholders will have their minds on other things. Therefore, we will launch it, and there will be publicity prior to Christmas, but post-Christmas and into the new year, our colleagues within our communications unit have a robust communications plan, we will see enhanced advertising of the opportunities that are available for citizens, stakeholders and staff to participate within the consultation exercise. In terms of inclusivity, in terms of citizens, there will be a survey that will be launched on the 20th of December, and that will run through to the end of January. And that survey will be both online and available within all of our public-facing council facilities. And council staff within those facilities are being briefed and trained to support citizens and prompt them, if possible, to complete the survey at every opportunity. Those surveys will then be returned, and we will input that data on their behalf. In terms of staff, I could bring in my colleague Anna Tuitt, who could provide a more sort of holistic view of the opportunities staff will have. But in terms of the overall stakeholders, there will be a number of stakeholders that we'll be actively writing to with the opportunity to participate within the consultation, both online and in hard copy, and that will also include direct communications with our community councils. So maybe just bring Anna in if she wants to cover the staff element. Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, absolutely. So following that process, we'll be continuing to cascade communications to staff without access to devices, but we're also running focus groups from the week commencing the 9th of January. So they're being organised just now with the whole council and ward represented as well. So we've got 34 members of staff representing council service areas. And any staff that are, field facing or don't have devices that they don't use in their day-to-day post, we have supervisors supporting them to be able to access the focus groups from MS Teams. And also we'll be doing the same. So we'll be encouraging people to complete the survey online, but we have paper copies, and then I'll input that into the system for the working group. I've also been collating comments since the first cascade of the communication went to staff through Gov Delivery. So that will continue in the new year to be collated weekly, so that there isn't a rush at the close of the consultation period to ensure that we've captured everybody's comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. And Anna, does that help address your question, Councillor Hagman?
It does, thank you. I think it might be helpful to maybe share the comms plan with elected members so we can see that. And just one other comment to make sure that we are reaching out to our trade union partners as well to get their feedback. But yeah, thank you.
No, thanks for that. And I think if that's possible, could we maybe get a note of the actual detail of the consultation plan so that members are fully informed and they can relay that to their respective ward communities? Thank you. So just in terms of the actual annual deliverables, just on that point alone, I think obviously when this comes back, we will be agreeing a budget at the same time, and I think that piece of work will be something that the Leaders Panel will look to oversee. But Chief Exec, I don't know if you want to just say a couple of words on that. Thank you.
Yes, in terms of the deliverables, that it will be an extension of the council plan, so it will sit with the Leaders Panel in terms of the inclusive leadership arrangements. And I don't know if Heather wants to add anything about the annual deliverables process beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Just picking up on that, on the timeline that was shared with members and the leadership panel, so following closure of the consultation process, we'll be bringing forward the deliverables, the annual deliverables plan format and style for the leadership panel to consider and give us some advice on, and then that will run alongside the budget process. What we're also doing is looking at a streamlining of reporting and monitoring arrangements. Members will be familiar with our current business plan arrangements and the series of plans across the council that jointly deliver on the previous council plan. So we are looking at streamlining that alongside the themes to make it far easier from a reporting point of view and being able to demonstrate our delivery. But that will absolutely come through the leadership panel, and we'll take your guidance and steer on what you expect that to look like. But there will be proposals coming forward early February for the panel to consider on that.
Thanks, Heather. That's helpful. So we've got a number of members wanting to come in. First of all, Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Chair. It's page 56 of Appendix 1, I think it is, the actual document we're putting out, economy. Now, there's 6 bullet points there. I'm just wondering if there's been one duplicated or if one's been left out by mistake. If you look at bullet point 4 and bullet point 6, do they not say the same thing, but just the words turn round a wee bit?
Yeah.
And the other one was page 66, just for my own information. Do we now measure life expectancy in percentages? Is that something that the Health Board asks us to do?
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor Hislop. I think on the first point, I think maybe the wording, this is a draft obviously, but I think we can maybe pick that up in terms of have we either missed a bullet point or is there duplication, as you said. And as for the percentage, what's our percentage of living to that age? Maybe that's what that is. But yeah, I've picked that up as well, so I think that can be corrected to years and not percentages, but well spotted.
Right.
Councillor Dougie Campbell.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to drill down a wee bit further on the consultation process and to ask if the consultees that are approached would be tailored at all in relation to the themes. So I'm thinking for the education themes, will parent councils be directly contacted to give them the opportunity to participate? And for the economy themes, will, for example, the Chambers of Commerce and businesses be approached? Because all of these stakeholders, I think, will have a direct interest in the council plan, and I think it would be a miss for us, or it'd be very disappointing, I should say, if we missed out these organisations and gave them an opportunity to contribute. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Campbell. So just on that, in terms of the consultation, are we targeting groups that might have a direct interest in that way? Could we maybe get that assurance through yourself, Stuart? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. In terms of the question, the targeting of the survey will be a generic survey that will be issued to all stakeholders, but I think the communications that we will undertake will directly sort of point out to stakeholders, whether it be a parent council or the Chamber of Commerce, the area that may be of most interest to them, but the opportunity for them to contribute across the entire consultation will be open to them all. And we do have a broad list of stakeholders that we traditionally engage with as our council, and I'd be happy to share that with members if that would be helpful.
Thank you. So if it's helpful, Councillor Campbell, if that's maybe included in the detail of the consultation as well, so we can make sure that we're reaching the right people.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks.
Thank you. So next on the list is Councillor Andrew Wood.
Thank you, Chair. It's a 5-year plan, and I was just wondering why there's not comparative figures, because when I'm looking at page 56 and the very first bullet point under the strategic outcomes, it says there is a diversified and growing local economy that benefits all. Yet at the same time, when I'm looking at page 57, and agriculture, our current industries now, agriculture, the Scottish Agricultural College did an in-depth study of agriculture in the region, and that was back in 2005, and it was at 27% of the region's economy, and yet we're down at 13.9. Likewise, there's another survey done on accommodation, food and services, and I'm sure, just off the top of my head, but that was about 12%. Manufacturing as well seems to have dropped, and I'd be keen to know where the sources of these figures are, and likewise, I would also be keen to see comparative figures so that we can monitor the progress that is being made with the plan.
Thanks, Councillor Wood. And this is obviously a draft, but the figures, it's maybe worthwhile hearing from Heather if she's able to assist in terms of where the figures are sourced from, and if there's a sense check needed in terms of how up to date they are, because obviously there will have been changes in the last few years, most notably with the changes that we've all had to experience. But Heather, over to you.
Thank you. Absolutely, we will look at alignment of the figures with the data. Councillor Wood, that's a helpful comment. It helps just tell that story and demonstrate the progress of the plan. And again, yeah, we will certainly ensure that we look at the data over time. Whether that's included in the plan or future reporting, we can consider as we go through the final stages of finalisation of the plan. In terms of the source of the figures, but we'll make sure that, that's captured. They came from a number of sources, to be honest. Quite a few of the figures came from our regional economic strategy and other open data that's available to us. So we'll double check that and make sure that we do note that the source of the figures so that they're in the context in which they were taken from.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm Johnson.
Thank you, Convener. It's reading through the plan. It's a good plan, and it's somewhere I think we can agree that we all want to end up. So it's very much an aspiration looking at it, and it's my concern is, like many people's, about the consultation. I seem to be like a lot of members that bring this up all the time. We keep talking about contacting businesses, and one of the things they keep saying is contact the Chamber. Well, the sad fact of life is most businesses don't engage with the Chamber. That is not the way to get to business. Now, I see Karen sitting over there. We've got a database of suppliers. We've got a database of people who have been unsuccessful in applying for business with the council. We've got the trusted trader scheme. We've got all these sort of things. So there are plenty vehicles we could use to contact business direct, because, like I say, not everyone engages with organisations such as the Chamber or the Federation of Small Business. So I would just like to point that out as a possible avenue for the consultation. The next thing is on page 57. We've got a nice wee graphic there explaining various sectors in our economy. And for something I've been saying for years, one of our biggest challenges in Dumfries and Galloway is that we need to attract better value-added business. We're dependent on sectors that are not high-paying. They're not growing in the way we would like. And unless we can attract some of these businesses into the region, we're going to struggle. I know Ivor made the comment about Elon Musk, but you know what? Aim for the stars, see how we can get on, because we really need to be attracting more inward investment. Now, is that going to be part of the council's remit, or has that been outsourced to SOSI?
I think on the first point about consultation, I think that's a great idea. I think I'd have to sort of defer to officers to make sure that we were not breaching any confidentialities about people who were stored on databases, but I don't know if Karen can maybe speak to that just now. She's nodding her head, so I'll take that as a yes. So I think we should explore, rather than just the go-to Federation of Small Businesses or Chamber of Commerce, which, as you say, not all businesses are connected to those, so we might be missing quite a lot of our region's contributors if we don't explore other ways. So I think that can be picked up. In terms of who leads on the economic strategy, well, I think that's, you're right to identify South of Scotland Enterprise, but also the regional economic strategy and the partnership between us all, effectively, who have an interest in the benefit of the region, around that table, overseeing the delivery of that strategy, and that's where we're at the moment with the regional economic partnership. So I think we have to accept that we're not the only game in town when it comes to developing the economy, but we have a key role to play. I don't know at this point, Dawn, in terms of your executive officer lead role with the council, you've been working with partners and have sight of these things as well. So in terms of the relationship with SOSI and helping take forward our aspirations, could you maybe add a little bit of context to that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the comment and question. And as the convener said, you know, the partnership arrangements that we have are really key in terms of taking forward the aspirations, the outcomes, the priorities in the council plan. And, you know, those developing relationships with SOSI are really important in terms of being clear about respective roles and their role to facilitate, enable, you know, business growth and the development of the economy, and our role as an enabler as well, and how we can leverage in opportunities to the region, because it's a region of fantastic opportunities, you know, untapped potential, and I think we've all got to play our part, you know, whether it's through partnership arrangements, working collectively and collaboratively to maximise that moving forward. So the relationships and arrangements are in place. We've just got to capitalise on that, I think, as we move forward. And I think it will be on a case-by-case basis. It depends what we're talking about. Is it, about levering in investment, inward investment? Is it about, employability? We will play a number of different roles in different guises depending on the different issues that we're looking to address. So I think we've just got to be flexible and agile in that and be able to work collaboratively with a range of different partners. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And speaking as someone who runs a business, one of the biggest challenges in the region at the moment is recruiting staff. Recruiting and retention is one of the biggest issues, and we need to address that. And we need to get away from, our average weekly income being one of the lowest in Scotland. That, to me, is should be one of our top priorities.
No, point well made. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I've now got Councillor George Jameson.
Yeah, I'm referring to page 51, the forward. We know the plan centres on 4 themes: economy, transport, connectivity and infrastructure. And in the next line, we talk about together they form the Council's focus. Obviously, none of these themes stand alone. There's a great deal of interconnection there. What I would like to be assured of is there's a mechanism to make sure that, for example, education and skills work with social, they work with skills development, things like that. I think we need to firm on that we don't look at these 4 themes as silos and that they're integrated to get the maximum benefit for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that obviously we have to kind of identify themes in some sense to give that context, but I think the overarching kind of philosophy is that these are all connected, and it's only by working together through the various themes and where the synergies are that we're going to actually get better results. So I would like to think that we could take that for granted and move away from, the historical view that we have been maybe in silos across our departments and other organisations. But thanks, Councillor Jameson. Councillor Inglis.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. It's on page 57 of the economy element of the plan. Under our current industries, there's no mention there of the construction industry whatsoever. Is there a reason for that?
Fair point. Heather, I think that's maybe one for yourself, but obviously we're trying to, I suppose, summarise things into top 5s perhaps, but I don't know where construction fits into that in terms of the figures, but the list isn't exhaustive, I would assume, but is there a reason why construction isn't there? Thank you.
No, there's absolutely not. We can certainly look to see if we can get some data around that and see how it sits alongside the rest. Absolutely.
Thanks, Convener.
Thank you. And I think we've got a second speaker in... Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I think the presentation of this report is excellent. It's big, it's clear. I hope it will be made accessible in all forms for people. We were celebrating success at the start of this meeting, and I think maybe some of that could be represented in the pictures better. The range of pictures is not fantastic across the whole region, and I think that can be better done. So, for example, Devil's Porridge and also could we add maybe just a setting as to where we sit within Scotland or southwest Scotland and the mention of the Lonely Planet. And if somebody is thinking of coming to work in Dumfries and Galloway and this is what they see, something that will encourage them to think, actually, this council is going somewhere.
No, thank you. I mean, I think that's fair. I don't know if members felt the range of images in the document was as reflective as it could be for the respective wards, but I'm sure that can be picked up as a bit of feedback to maybe select some final or alternative images potentially. And as you've said, we started the meeting by celebrating successes, and maybe when we're more outward looking to people out with the region, we need to sort of advertise that better. So there's maybe something in the narrative we could pick up in terms of feedback, in terms of how we actually capture some of the what the world sees in us rather than what we see in ourselves, kind of thing. So maybe that can be taken on board. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Convener. I am quite content with the draft plan as it stands. I note that it's a high level and it doesn't focus on the deliverables. The detail is yet to come, and we are very much dependent on a very quick changing environment. So I think the good thing about that is we'll be flexible and able to respond to that in our council plan going forward for the next 5 years. I think something that hasn't been mentioned, I think it's rightly so that we go over this and make notice of it, but I think from a bigger perspective, what for me it illustrates for this council, I think it's really, really important to note this, is that it's an ambitious plan for the next 5 years. We've come out of 5 or 2 or 3 years of COVID. We've got really, really challenging economic times. We've got a cost of living crisis. And what this sets out is Dumfries and Galloway Council's ambition as a council for the area. I think that really needs to be noted. We're not a universal provider, we're very much an enabler, and I think working with other people, working through Borderland, South of Scotland Regional Economic Partnership, we are actually going to be attracting or creating the right conditions, holistic conditions to attract business in. It isn't just about attracting business, it's about housing, it's about schools, it's about everything else. So I think the plan covers all of that, and I think really congratulations to the folk that pulled it together, and I think a congratulations to everybody who participated. We all participated in this, we all put things forward, and what the outcome is a collective focus of every single councillor in this council on where we want to take Dumfries and Galloway. So I think, I'm not going to ask for a round of applause, but I think we all need to be congratulated on where we are just now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dorward. Yeah, and I think we should recognise that this is the overarching, this is what we've all fed into, and it is a piece of work that we should use to set out our ambition, as you say. I think that's the key word there, because it is a 5-year plan. And now I've got a couple of speakers to come in. Councillor Scobie, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's really just page 59. And building on what Linda has just said, and it's our strategic outcomes, and particularly to the roads. And it was disappointing that the event on the 13th of December was cancelled, or postponed rather, where we were going to be launching the economic impact assessment by the 3 local authorities working collaboratively. And I think this will improve inward investment if we've got proper road connections, and it's just disappointing that maybe the STPR2 has not come out with just as much as we would like, so it really adds to our ability to lobby to make sure that both governments are working together to bring about improvement to both the A75 and the A77, none more so when you reflect on the serious accident in Crocketford only a week or so ago, and the way that has raised the community there to actually look for these roads to be upgraded. So in that respect, you know, it's in the detail, as you say, Linda. We need to look at the detail and how we move that forward in terms of our roads. And just to say, Chair, that yeah, I was happy with what Liz said in terms of our team, and Richard as well, in terms of whether it's either the leader and or the budget panel to look at a direct line for people under the cost of living crisis.
Well, thanks, Councillor Scobie. And I think, yes, there's no doubt our connectivity and infrastructure have long been an issue that we see as being key to unlocking the potential and just attracting businesses and allowing people to actually access opportunities as well. So that remains our priority, whether it's what we can deliver or who we need to lobby with. So completely take that on board. I've got Councillor Wood wanting to come in again, and I think we'll maybe go and go to the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's really just on that very point, so I'll keep it short, and that is if you don't get the infrastructure right, you'll not get inward investment. Hence the reason you've got Lockerbie growing at the rate of knots that it's growing at, because it just sits off the motorway.
No, and I think each of us could reflect something in our own wards that could be improved by better infrastructure, and I think that's why we need to keep pushing for that. So to the recommendations then, there's been some good feedback there. So if we note the programme of development for the draft council plan, which involved all of us obviously in setting its direction as per section 3.2, happy to note. Thank you. Note the oversight of the leaders panel in the development at section 3.2. Agree the draft council plan included as Appendix 1 with, there's been some minor amendments obviously highlighted today which we can pick up But this is the overarching document, the high-level document, and that forms the basis for the plan, public and stakeholder and staff consultation. Are we happy to agree that? Thank you. And then agree the consultation mandate set out in Appendix 2 for consultation on the draft council plan. I think we also picked up points about how we reach businesses we wouldn't otherwise reach, and maybe exploring ways to make sure we target that consultation, but we've had that assurance from officers, so are we happy to agree that? Thank you. And then agree that a report is presented to a full council in February 2023, providing feedback from the consultation process on the draft council plan and proposing a final council plan. Thank you. And then lastly, if we agree that subject to recommendation 2.5, a 2023, I'm going to change the wording slightly here, so just bear with me because it doesn't read it very well. A 2023-24 council plan annual deliverables is determined by full council in March 2023. Would that be an acceptable form of wording? I think if you read it out loud, it sounds a bit weird otherwise, but would members be happy with that sort of semantic tweak? Okay, thank you. Can I just ask at this point, are the BSL team okay to carry on, or do you want to take a break? I'm seeing thumbs up, so if there is an issue, please just let me know and I'll respond to that. Okay, thank you. So that takes us on to item 8. This is the procurement standing orders. The report seeks to provide the updated procurement standing orders which govern all procurement related activities within the council. The recommended revised procurement standing orders are provided at the appendix of this report. We have Karen Scott here as procurement manager to assist members with any questions. So over to members, any questions on this report? I'll allow a moment for those online to just make their comments in the chat. Karen, I don't know if you want to introduce the report yourself, just to give members time to think. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, convener. So the updated procurement standing orders follow on from the last update, which was undertaken in 2017. In 2017, it was more of a fundamental overhaul of the standing orders, but since that time, there's been a number of changes in terms of both our markets, our organisation, and some of the updates nationally as well, and some of the guidance, particularly around construction and health and social care procurement. So the update presented today for approval really provides a refinement of our standing orders as opposed to the fundamental overhaul we experienced in 2017, and is really just to take forward some of the feedback as well arising from the Finance Procurement Transformation Committee review work that has been undertaken over the last couple of years. So again, it's in keeping with some of the feedback through those workshops, and it has also taken some further consultation in terms of our contractors and our supply base within Dumfries and Galloway, and also across a range of service areas as well.
Thanks, Karen. And I think the one thing that stood out for me was on page 80 in terms of the summary, just about the thresholds applied to works contracts, which obviously I think the intention is to try and, where possible, encourage and benefit local suppliers. Is that really where that's aimed at?
It is, convener, yes. So it's in line with some of the recommendations as well through some of the community wealth building project that we're undertaking at the moment, and some of the feedback we've received locally from contractors is the uncertainty in an open process can be quite off-putting in terms of bidding. So the increasing of that threshold allows us to encourage more local contractors to bid, and is intended to support our aspirations around local economic growth.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. No issue at all with this particular item, other than the fact that some contractors are finding that there's a delay in payment, and I'm sure that the council has a policy of paying within 28 days. Has that changed?
I'll pass over to Karen, but I believe we're actually quite good at paying on time. I'm not sure if there's particular exceptions. Karen, could you assist?
Certainly our payment provisions are within 30 days and we generally report that we're performing very well against that 30-day target, with most actually being paid under 10 days. But I'm happy to take any particular examples and look into them. On occasion it can be some issues in terms of the billing and accuracy of invoicing and whether or not an order was included within the invoice itself, and that can cause some challenges in the process. But certainly from our reporting there's no obvious issues, but happy to take any concerns offline directly.
Thanks, Karen. Councillor Walters.
Can I just ask for clarification on page 80? The removal of references to the council trading organisation. As a new councillor, I'm not really sure what that means. I just wanted to check that it's not going to make any difference if, say, for instance, in the future, the council was to have its own bus fleet, for instance.
Thank you. Karen, can you help with that?
Yep, so apologies. The reference there obviously related to a previous structure operated within the council whereby we had enterprise and services, or also known as DG First. So there were specific provisions within the previous standing orders around that. So the principles though of considering how we utilise internal resources first has actually just been brought into that the whole thinking process around our procurement decision making, as opposed to something that was specific only to one service. So absolutely in terms of the consideration of another internal service provision, be that through transport or anything else, the consideration of use of in-house or other public sector bodies is an integral part of the decision making as set out in the contract strategy and the schedule of the standing orders.
Okay, thank you. We now have Councillor Malcolm Johnson.
Thank you, Convener. It's just when I see the limits that have been set, I was wondering how often we review that, because obviously in certain sectors we've got quite high inflation at the moment, and will we revisit it, because sooner or later everything will catch up with it.
Karen, can you help with that?
Yep, so the thresholds are reviewed every 2nd January, Malcolm, so yeah, we would review that in line with that at that point.
Thank you. And Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Yeah, thank you. In relation to page 80, you talk about the arrangements for procurement for health and social care contracts. I just wondered if you could enlighten us how that relates to the IJB and the funding that we provide there, and how this would link in with that, please. Thank you.
Is that something you can help with, Karen, specifically? Thank you.
Thank you. So in relation to contracts commissioned for the IJB, these procurement standing orders will relate where the council is the contracting entity. So where we delegate the funding to the IJB, the activities are then split still within the respective organisations, as the IJB cannot be a contracting entity in its own right. So for legal purposes, the council, for a lot of the care commission through the IJB, act as the contracting entity, and in which case our full procurement standing orders do apply. So can I confirm that we would be consistent with the Health Board, where they're the contracting and commissioning agent, that this policy would be consistent with what they already have in place or what they're going to put in place? Thanks. It is indeed, yes. So the updates here are in line with some of the national updates, and so again, both ourselves and the NHS are aligned on that, and we meet on a regular basis as well to ensure consistency irrespective of the contracting entity.
Okay, thank you, and thanks, members. So we've been asked to effectively revoke the current procurement standing orders effective from tomorrow and approve the adoption of the procurement standing orders provided in the appendix of this report effective from tomorrow. Happy to do so? Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 9, which is a scheme of delegation and responsibilities to officers and statutory appointments. This scheme at 2.9 provides that where urgent updating of powers is required, amendments to the scheme may be made by the Head of Governance and Assurance if this is not in conflict with or contrary to any statutory provision, the Council standing orders, Council policy or delegation to another officer. So this matter, as members of the Review of Standing Orders Subcommittee may be aware, was presented at 24th of November 2022, and this provided the earliest notification to members of the amendment to the scheme prior to reporting to this meeting of full council. Vlad Valiente, as Head of Governance and Assurance, is here to assist members with any questions. I don't know if you want to speak to this, Vlad, in the first instance.
Yes, thank you, Convener. simply just to clarify, this is a procedural report in which, in essence, is given members a notification of a change that I've had to make in order to ensure that, in particular, environmental health officers are able to do their job as per the scheme of delegations, and what is, in essence, has always been their role. Simply, at times, we catch certain regulations and so on that haven't been spelled out. And therefore that's what we've done in this instance. Obviously we do a full review every year. We try and catch these things out, but from time to time, due to changes in legislation and other matters, these prop up. So it's purely one of procedural notification to elected members, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm Johnson.
Thank you, Convener. Prior to these the changes, have we been operating in a legal manner? Has there been any issue with that? Just for reassurance.
No, is the quick answer to that. In regards to that particular regulation, not at all. This is part and parcel of the due diligence that we do before we take any action, and therefore we've caught this out at the right time.
Thank you. So are we happy to note the amendment made to the scheme of delegation as per paragraphs 3.31 and 3.32? Okay, thank you. So item 10 then, a regular at full council it seems, but Licensing Scotland Act vacancy on Annandale and Estill Divisional Licensing Board this time. This advises us of a vacancy in the membership of Annandale and Estill Divisional Licensing Board. Vlad and Sharon Davidson are here to assist members with any questions, but obviously we should be pretty familiar with how this works by now. Sharon, I don't know if you want to speak to this report in the first instance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. No, as you allude to, this is you've had a couple of items recently about this. So this one is in relation to a vacancy in Annandale and Estill Licensing Board. Slightly different to the previous item in that the current membership number of Annandale Board is 6. So we are looking to obviously elect a member to fill that vacancy. There is the possibility, should that not be possible today, to reduce the number of the membership on the board, with the minimum legal number being 5 members. That is an option if it has to come to that, obviously.
Thank you. So we get to this awkward point in the meeting again where we cast the net out for volunteers. I would say though that all the other licensing boards have a membership currently of 5, which is the minimum. We're now down to 5 in Annandale and Estill, which is the minimum. So we're okay if we agree that that is the number on the board, as far as I gather. Unless there's a mad rush of volunteers, and they're often hard to find. Anybody want to come forward who'd like to join the Annandale and Estill Licensing Board? Councillor Dryborough first, and then Karen Carruthers. So Archie.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I think in this case, obviously, if we don't have any volunteers coming forward, the best thing to do would be to reduce it to 5. It has, has been difficult to get as many as 5 onto the Annandale and Estill Licensing Board over the last number of years. But on the pretext of anybody not coming forward, I would suggest we go forward with reducing that to 5.
Thanks, Councillor Dryborough. Councillor Karen Carruthers.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, I'll volunteer. I'm more than happy to go on it, just to give them an extra person.
I'm pleasantly surprised, and thank you. So that does mean that you'll have to sit an exam. I think that's one of the conditions, but I don't know if, Sharon, you can maybe then make contact with, are members happy to accept the kind of, agree? Okay, very quickly agreed there. So Sharon, if you can maybe pick up with Councillor Carruthers and take that forward. And thank you very much, Karen, for your offer. I wasn't expecting that, so it's a kind Christmas bonus. Thank you. That takes us on to item 11, which is also relevant. Members were advised at the full council on 28th of June that Head of Governance Assurance intended to conduct a review of the Licensing Board structure, and this report seeks members' approval to progress the review. So this would be us starting that review. Vlad is here, Sharon as well, to assist members with any questions, but effectively we'd be asking for something to come back so that we could take a decision in March. Vlad, I'll hand over to you on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and for members, just to recall that this has been discussed time and time again, and the previous item probably reflects some of the issues that we've had. As a result, we promised, I think on one of the first meetings in which this particular point was raised, to bring this back to you. Again, doing our due diligence in terms of the various steps that we need to take in that regard. The only thing I would just indicate is that it is indicative timescale, so we would aim to do that, but obviously there's consultations and various other things that might take a bit longer. That's the only word of caution I would put within that particular report.
Thank you, Vlad. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Leader. Obviously, I welcome this review. Obviously, it's been discussed at full length in previous full councils. I'm just wondering what other local authorities are doing in Scotland about this, and what's their approach to this situation?
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I mean, it is obviously in the report to some extent in terms of we're one of very few local authorities that has divisional licensing boards in this way, but Vlad, I don't know if you could give us the national picture and where we fit in. Thank you.
I'd probably suggest that Sharon's maybe better placed to give that answer. However, from my perspective, I think that's part and parcel of the process that we'll go through, is that benchmarking and ensuring that we're aligned as best we can with best practice.
Thanks, Vlad. We certainly don't need to follow other local authorities. We can soon make up our own mind, Dumfries and Galloway.
Absolutely. Sharon, do you want to maybe add to assist Councillor Bell in terms of context? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, Dumfries and Galloway is one of only two licensing authorities that have divisions at the moment. There have been a number of other local authorities and licensing boards who have previously been divisionals, but have revoked that determination and became a unitary board over the last few years. So it's we are in the minority at the moment, and I have been looking at the most recent licensing board who became a unitary licensing board, and that was in 2020, and the reasons behind that decision. So we will be kind of liaising closely with other licensing boards, just to get a little bit of perspective on how, what works better with one board, what works better with divisional boards. So that information will be before members when it comes back to the full council in due course.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Malcolm Johnson and then Councillor McFarlane.
Thank you, Convener. It's really just to the extent of the review that we're going to be taking out here. Are we basically just looking at we either have status quo or we go to unitary, or are we exploring other options where we reduce the number of boards to 2, or where we take it forward? So it's just I would like to see a full report spelling out all the options, ideally coming back.
Vlad, can you maybe give us a wee flavour of that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you through you, Convener. That's certainly something we've discussed as officers in terms of ensuring that as many as possible of the alternatives for members to consider, and obviously having the advantages and disadvantages to these laid out in that kind of options appraisal before you make that final decision.
As far as I understand, one of the big issues with this is the fact that people can't jump between one board and the other because they've got to go through basically the same exam with to serve in a different part of the region.
No, thank you, and I think we can. Well, if we go to the recommendations, we're being asked to agree that head of governance in the role as clerk to Dumfries and Galloway Divisional Licensing Board conducts this review and brings that back effectively, including public consultation, in accordance with the indicative timeline. So we should get all those options, the options appraisal, if you like, back in front of us to make a determination. We're aiming for March, but obviously things can get in the way at times, but that's the target. So are we happy to agree? Good. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, my fault. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions. It does suggest that there will be some cost savings, and clearly there will be cost savings in as much as people will sit one exam, and therefore that will reduce the cost to us. It does suggest that perhaps there may be longer meetings But I would guess that we'd do something along the lines of the local review board as a means of rotating members in order to sort of manage that. One key question I would just like to ask is item 3.17 on page 167. It talks about revoking termination, divisional licence boards, etc. But it talks about the small casino licence. Just how significant is that, if it's significant at all? And I'm assuming that at 3.6 we won't have any issues with the Scottish ministers in moving to this, if that was the case. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor McFarlane. Just on the casino licence, I don't know if obviously that's a legacy historical arrangement that's never quite come through, but Vlad, could you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, I think that particular point is one that I would want to, and we have identified as requiring specific legal advice to ensure that we are clear as to what the position is. So I wouldn't want to discuss that at this point because I'm not clear what the position is, but we have discussed this as officers, and that we've obviously highlighted it to members as one of the things that we will be looking at more thoroughly to ensure that we have a response for you.
Just in terms of the likely impediment or support from ministers, should it go that far?
I couldn't, sorry, Convener, I couldn't speak to obviously the sound music thereafter, but certainly in terms of members' decision making, we can look into that as well as the repercussions of it, which might be those but kind of Scottish Government or otherwise.
Okay, thank you. And with that then, if we are happy to agree, we can go forward. Agreed? Thank you very much. So that brings us then to item 12, which is the Dumfries and Galloway Council Armed Forces Champion, Annual Report 21-22. Obviously, the purpose of this is to provide an overview of the activities undertaken by this Council's Armed Forces Champion, Councillor Archie Drybra, MBE, for the period of 1st of April 2021 to March 2022. Liz Manson's available in Teams to assist members with any questions, but if I could invite Councillor Archie Drybra as our Armed Forces Champion to present his report. Over to you, Archie. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Convener. And last year again was a very busy year for those members of staff, the elected members and other organisations that have assisted me in carrying out this very significant role in Dumfries and Galloway. This is my 10th report and have been Armed Forces Champion for the past 11 years. One of the longest serving Armed Forces Champions in Scotland, if not the longest serving. And I have to say it's a job I relish, helping those who have helped to keep us safe across the United Kingdom. The re-establishment of the DG First Contact will be paramount to the work in this region for the next year. And there are some highlights I'd like to raise so that I can hopefully continue getting the support I have received over the past 11 years from you all in the room today and online. Firstly, the Royal Regiment of Scotland will exercise their freedom in Dumfries next year, marching through the town with bayonets fixed, proud of the association they have with us in the region. Early discussions have taken place on this, and we're looking at a couple of dates in either May or June next year. Secondly, the exemplar that is the Veterans Garden in Dumfries has been given a new licence to occupy on a monthly basis from the Crichton Trust, which will take away the greenhouses and raised beds to the rear of the greenhouses. For those of you who have attended, you will know where I mean, and this unfortunately does not allow the garden to either look for grants because it is a month-by-month licence to occupy, nor does it allow the garden to fulfil its charitable objectives. So we're actively looking at alternative location, which will enhance and refocus on other veterans issues, potentially at one of the buildings that we have in Dumfries and Galloway. I again hope that you can support this opportunity. An expression of interest has already been given to the Council for either a long-term lease or a community asset transfer. This may not be the place to raise this, but I will look to work with officers and directors to follow this through the appropriate committees and reports. Thirdly, I want to start the original plan of turning this small triangular piece of land at the rear of Maxwell Town Memorial into a remembrance garden, the maintenance of which, once completed, will be done by the Veterans Garden. DG First Contact will be re-established as the Research Forces in Mind Trust Research document, Our Covenant, Our Communities, has now been agreed and has an action plan to take forward with local authorities, higher education establishments and NHS. I've already had a meeting with those organisations, Armed Forces Champions, will look to renew the business case for veterans and their families. This year coming will be the 30th year that the Royal British Legion Scotland will be holding their annual conference in Perth. In 2024, they are looking to move around Scotland, and I'm having a bit of a discussion with them about bringing it to Dumfries for the 2024 national conference. So that's going pretty positively so far. In conclusion, the support I have received from officers, members, third sector organisations and the public will ensure our new business plan will be met and enhanced for those who are our armed forces community, who of course also include those serving and cadet forces, and importantly, their families as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Archie, and thank you for your work. You've certainly been consistent over the years and have taken to the role like no other, I think. But over to members, any comments or contributions you'd like to make in this particular item? Councillor John Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Convener, and thanks, Archie, for that report. I'm happy to support you in all your endeavours when it comes to the Armed Forces Champion, and if you need assistance, I'm always available. And well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any other comments from members? Councillor Johnson, Malcolm.
Thank you, Archie, and well done on all your hard work. And I was pleased to hear that bit you did about the Veterans Garden, because I was quite concerned when I heard of the developments up at the Crichton. So I'm pleased that you're going forward. I visited the Veterans Garden, and it was a great experience, and it's a fantastic help for the people that go up there. So well done with that, and all the best.
Okay, thumbs up from Archie there. Thank you very much. So members, are we happy to, I suppose, note the activities undertaken by Armed Forces Champion for period April 2021 to March 2022? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks again, Archie. That takes us on then to item 13, which is notice of motion. Oh, right, sorry, I'm getting some people talking about lunch. So can I suggest that we take a short break for lunch? I'm not sure what the time is. Come back at 12:30? Okay, I gather that lunch is being set up as we speak, so if we maybe do that and then we can pick up the final items on this agenda. Yep. Thank you. Welcome back, members. I hope you've been fed and watered sufficiently. We'll now move on to the Notice of Motion Community Cottage Hospitals, item 13. We're being asked to consider the Notice of Motion by Councillor Willie Scobie, seconded by Councillor Dougie Campbell, and the Notice of Motion is attached in the appendix. Councillors Scobie and Campbell, if you would please propose and second your motion, after which I'll invite contributions and questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify issues, while I did say I had an interest at the beginning of the meeting, let me clarify that I have no conflict of interest by virtue that I'm a member of the IJB board, and I will be participating in moving this motion. The motion does recognise the shared priorities between NHS, D&G and Dumfries and Galloway Council. But firstly, we would want to place on record our thanks to the NHS staff who are under severe pressure from the delayed discharges. And also, I want to put on record my support for the nurses who are on strike today on the very much the terms and conditions. And indeed, it's the first time the Royal College of Nurses have been on strike. Perhaps what prompted the motion was the cottage hospitals closed in 2020 with delayed discharges at that time high and now on the increase, and patients actually staying longer than or beyond their delayed discharge date. We do have a report from Julie White in response to the motion, but what we want to do is try and be of assistance to the NHS in what is difficult and challenging times, as we've been told. Julie's report was expected in that it deals with the statistical details, but this motion goes beyond the statistical details and focuses on the needs of the communities we all represent. That's from Moffat in the east to Newton Stewart in the west, and not forgetting Thornhill to the north, and we want to see something done with these cottage hospitals. In the report by Julie, it says that the Directorate of the Health and Social Care Partnership took the decision in 2020, but I think the question needs to be asked, should it not have been the Health Board who took that decision rather than having them closed by the Directorate? I think Julie in her report has been charitable in where the problem, she says the problem lies clearly within, for Dumfries and Galloway, in our home care. But Jeff Hayes has pointed the finger at the council and the shortage of care packages, and I quote from an email that I received where he says, I would expect the IGB to examine the efficacy of the council's social care provision to understand why Dumfries and Galloway model has failed. And I think we do need to look at our care provision, however, not to have the finger pointed at us. Hence why our motion talks about a minimum. We need to look at how we can recruit home carers into the sector so that we can provide for people who are have received their delayed discharge date and are able to return home. Unfortunately, some have not returned home and have died in hospital while under a delayed discharge. And we all know that there is some 3,000 hours plus maybe of unmet care hours, so we have to really look at that. On Saturday past, there was a public meeting in Newton Stewart where there was circa 200 people in attendance, and everyone who spoke wanted the Newton Stewart Cottage Hospital reopened, and that's the same that I'm hearing in Kirkcudbright, in Thornhill, and I would dare say in Moffat as well. Whether that's for step-down facilities, palliative care, respite, whatever the review that we are asking calls on that. But what is important is that every community where there is a cottage hospital, must be fully engaged and participate in what services they want to see delivered from their cottage hospitals. Let me give you a bit of background into the matter. On the 10th of March, while I say we had a public meeting, on the 10th of March, Jeff Hayes is on record as saying that we know there is a need for bed capacity in the locality, and this was referenced to Newton Stewart. And he goes on to say, and we will work through best models with the local population this summer. Well, that has never happened, hence the reason that we called that public meeting. Again, the Health Board were invited to meet with a joint group of the Galloway Community Hospital and the Friends of Newton Stewart Hospital on the 4th of November, and Jeff refused to meet with that particular group on the matter of Newton Stewart Hospital. And again, he was invited to the public meeting on Saturday past and refused again to come along. I want to stress the importance of the community and engaging with the community. And indeed, it was Humza Yousaf, as the Health Minister, who said on the 29th of November, after the Health Board refused to go to the public meeting, that whilst decisions regarding the future of community and cottage hospitals are best made at Health Board level, I completely agree local engagement on these important issues is vital to ensure appropriate services are developed moving forward. So in this respect, while we have been told that there is to be an intensive period of consultation between January 2023 to March 2023, we really must have participation and engagement with the local people in each of the areas. Indeed, if we look at the document that the IGB has provided in participation and engagement strategy, it clearly lays out in terms of, and I quote from that document, engagement and participation work must allow local people to influence services are designed and delivered, and it's to make the communities feel empowered in doing so. So in that respect, I would look for the Council to put to the Health Board that we do want this engagement, but we want to see engagement that will lead to the cottage hospitals being opened for whatever purposes that fits the bill, whether that's for palliative care, respite, step-down facilities. It's really to examine, as indeed the motion is asking for. So in conclusion, Chair, rather than going on, I would hope that the members would accept the motion as it is laid out there in all its facets, and to be writing to the Health Board in terms of examining how these cottage hospitals can be used and utilised. There is a fear in the community that indeed there is a hidden agenda by them remaining closed and not used. And in the document I refer to, it's got to be open and transparent, and that nothing is hidden from the community. So in that respect, the motion is asking for this, that we write to the Health Board so that we can get the participation and engagement with the community, and it must be with the community fully engaged in how we can utilise these cottage hospitals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Councillor Diggy-Campbell.
Thank you very much, Leader. It's a pleasure to second this motion today. I think it's important to stress that this motion is in full support of the NHS in Dumfries and Galloway and the challenges that they face, and also about the long-term future of our rural healthcare facilities. I'd like to take this opportunity just to reinforce a couple of things that Willie has said, but also to praise Willie for his long-standing commitment to protecting rural healthcare services. I think it's to his credit that he has doggedly pursued these matters, so I'm pleased to support him on this motion. Just to pick up a couple of things in relation to the motion. We talk about in the motion recruitment issues, and there's specific reference to asylum seekers, refugees and migrant workers. And I think we all know that Brexit has created recruitment problems, particularly for the NHS, including here in Dumfries and Galloway. And I know from my experience working with the Scottish Refugee Council that they have campaigned for well over 20 years now for the UK government to give asylum seekers the right to work. There aren't many asylum seekers at the moment in Dumfries and Galloway, but that doesn't mean that if they have the relevant skills, qualifications which are transferable and can meet the standards expected by our NHS, that we couldn't look to recruit them to back up the shortfalls that we currently have. And in relation to refugees, we've got quite a significant number of Ukrainian refugees in the region just now. And very recently I met a Ukrainian refugee in my own ward who is a health professional at a very high level. And she's gone through the process of qualifying to work here in Scotland. And she reckons it's going to take her 2 to 3 years, a significant financial cost to herself as well. So I think that the NHS, Scottish Government, UK Government, whoever, we all need to look at how can we fast track these opportunities we have to bring people on board to support our NHS. And I think it's important that we think creatively and innovatively to address the challenges that we have in that regard. To pick up on the review of bed provision that Willie mentioned, I've got some concerns about this review, and I would back what Willie said about openness and transparency. But the feedback I'm picking up is that this is just a precursor to closure. And if you use the example of Kirkcudbright Cottage Hospital, there's been campaigns for many, many years to save the cottage hospital. It's highly valued by the community. And if the NHS in Dumfries and Galloway can give assurances that this review isn't with a view to closure, but it's about improving rural healthcare provision, I think that will be well received. And as elected members, we all know that our rural communities are really, really struggling to survive. And certainly during my time as an elected member, we've seen primary schools close, post offices, banks, doctor surgeries, dental surgeries, and the fear is that cottage hospitals are next. And I think it's really, really important to emphasise the point that whilst the NHS, like we have to in the council, we have to make savings on an annual basis, I really feel strongly that this shouldn't be at the expense of our rural communities. I was delighted to hear about the public meeting in Newton Stewart. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend it, but I'm also really encouraged that I've been approached by members of my own community who want to establish a similar action group to save Kirkcudbright Cottage Hospital. I think it's really important that we protect what we've got, and if there are delivery models that the NHS and Dumfries and Galloway can identify to improve rural healthcare, I think it'd be great to hear what those plans are, but to make sure that the consultation is thorough, it's comprehensive, and we had this discussion earlier in relation to the council plan, but it is open and transparent. That's me. I'll conclude now, and I'm very happy to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dougie Campbell. Okay, there's a number of speakers indicated an interest in coming in on this. So I think first of all we've got Councillor Jim Dempster.
Thanks, Convener, and I'm happy to endorse the views that Woolley and Doogie have expressed, and I trust that the Council will support this motion. I recall, and I'm sure Councillor Hislop in particular will recall, a meeting in Thornhill 20 years ago, maybe when there was a proposal to close the cottage hospital. And I think the colourful way to describe the outcome is that the Health Board were chased out of Thornhill with boos ringing in their ears because of their draconian approach at closing or attempting to close Thornhill Hospital. And here we are again. This time we had a COVID, and it was a crisis, an absolute crisis. It was threatening the lives and well-being of the whole Dumfries and Galloway and global communities. And quite rightly, the Thornhill Hospital was changed to accommodate some COVID opportunity work where that to be required. But I feel now that it's become a COVID opportunity, and that there's an opportunity being taken, given that the hospital is currently closed, to simply keep it closed or change the nature of the services. And one of the reasons I say that is the Health Board did meet with Thornhill Community Council members a week or so ago, and the members were encouraged by what was being said. But one of the things that concerned me was that the initial statement was it will not reopen as a cottage hospital in the true sense. Now, for me, that's not a consultation. That's a statement of intent. And now you can look at the alternatives. And I don't believe that that's an approach that the Health Board should be taking. And just for members' information, some of us were at the Ministerial Area Committee when Alison Foley presented the quarterly or 6-monthly report for the IJB, where it was stated in the document that there are members of the mid and upper ministerial community currently in cottage hospitals in Lochmaben and in Langham. And Chair, you need to borrow the TARDIS to get from Kirkconnell, Sanquhar or Thornhill to Langham, because there's no way public services will accommodate that. So anybody that's an inpatient in these hospitals will not get the social welfare and visitors that they need to stimulate and support the recovery whilst they're recuperating in a cottage hospital. And the last thing I'll say, just as a throwaway line, Convener, we've identified serious issues with property and schools in Dumfries and Galloway, and our solution to that is to invest in the fabric and the structure, and if need be, build new buildings. That programme's ongoing with Dumfries Learning Town 2, and I'm hoping it will extend to Dumfries and Galloway Learning Town 3. So there's nothing to stop the Health Board, if they feel that these cottage hospitals that are currently closed are not fit for purpose, that they simply review the condition of the hospital and carry out a programme of works that bring them into the 21st century and serve the community the way they should. So I'll leave it at that, Chair. I'm really disappointed that there seems to be a fixed position that Thornhill especially will not open as a hospital, and I don't think it's true consultation if you don't start with all options being available to the mid and upper Nithsdale and wider community.
Thank you, Councillor Dempster. I have Councillor Drysdale next to speak.
Thank you very much, Convener. First of all, can I put it on record that I would like to thank everybody that's worked so hard during the NHS as well during this current period. It's a challenging task for everybody, but especially to all social care workers whom I am fortunate enough to meet, not in this area, but elsewhere in Ayrshire. And I do find that these people are extremely undervalued. They're amazing at what they do and they're underpaid. And to this effect, I would support Councillor Scobie and Councillor Campbell, but I think we need to really think hard about this motion, in particular the last sentence, which I would like to asked this committee to consider rewriting, and there are a number of reasons for this. First of all, I'll read out what I think the wording should be, and then we can perhaps enter into discussion. So it should read, I think, to overcome the bed space shortages, the Council calls on the Chief Exec of NHS D&G to explore how the community cottage hospitals that were closed during lockdown can be reopened as a matter of urgency. Then from there on in particularly for palliative care, IV beds, rehabilitation and support services such as kidney dialysis, etc., rather than those awaiting care packages. Last sentence. Dumfries and Galloway Council needs to assist the HSPC to work with providers to identify ways to increase capacity within the social care sector, wherein we all know the biggest issue arises. The reason I say this is because there was a communication sent out to some of us, those of us who deal a lot with people working within our hospitals, i.e. Castle Douglas Hospital, which is partly open, and other people who are working within the system. I think for the sectors of Newton Stewart Hospital that's still open. And this communication is really, really crucial to the way we take this forward. And it states, if the HSCP was to reopen the 4 closed cottage hospitals at the moment, which, as you know, I think is extremely important, but for certain services, it would be required to redeploy these staff back into an inpatient setting on 24/7 rotas. Unfortunately, this would mean that they could care for only around half as many patients as they are currently supporting at home. The net effect would be a reduction in our care capacity and further increase in the level of delayed discharges. There are not enough staff within the Health and Social Care Partnership to open the closed cottage hospitals and continue to staff the enhanced community teams to support people at home. Reopening cottage hospital beds with the resultant increase in the number of people who are delayed would destabilise the health and social care system further and would adversely impact on health and well-being of those individuals who are delayed. Every day spent in an inpatient bed who are no longer requiring clinical intervention will reduce an individual's muscle mass, their ability to mobilise and ultimately their ability to return to independent living. It's crucial, therefore, that the health and social care system work collectively to fix the social care capacity gap, to allow more people to be supported at home rather than simply opening more beds that will be filled with patients waiting even longer to be discharged. You'll know my view on this. It's happened to a family member of mine, and we rehabilitated my father at a cottage hospital and then got him home. He is therefore survived now for over 5.5 years, and that is because he was able to be more mobile. At that point, we did have enough care packages in place to get him home more quickly. I think we really need to look at the motion in terms of the last sentence, and again, I reiterate, try and help everybody as much as possible across the region to find more in-home care workers. I have found somebody this week off my own back who's having an interview, I think, in the next couple of weeks, albeit just at a local, I'm not going to call it a hospital, but a local service centre, and that person is hoping to become employed and will move on up the system. So it's just really to open that up to discussion if that's allowed, convener, because we are in a dire situation with palliative care, as you know, as well, with lack of beds at the Alexandra unit. And sorry, pardon me, before I finish, the other thing we really have to remember here, and you alluded to it, Councillor Campbell, and earlier on, the earlier speaker, if you have elderly people, we've got a massively huge ongoing elderly population, they cannot get the transport required to go and visit people even at the local cottage hospitals if they're near end of life or heading in towards that direction. So that is another reason why we need to work on the motion and look at it in more detail. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks, Councillor Drysdale. I think obviously there's quite a substantive amendment effectively which would have to consider, and certainly the mover and the seconder would probably have to consider that. We'll come to that in a wee bit, but I think would it be possible if we could arrange for that form of words to be circulated to members while we take a few more speakers, if that's okay. Maybe put it in the chat and then. Yeah, but we'll need obviously time to consider that. But
no problem. I can send it over in writing, yeah, to Tracy. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. But before we get to that, there's a few more speakers. So, Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Having recently joined the council, I've joined the IJB and been appointed as vice chair, and on doing so, I've gained a bit of an insight that previously I wasn't wasn't known to me. Following on from that, I've gained a bit more of an understanding, I think. And I would never ever class myself as an expert, however. But certainly the view that I get from the Health and Social Care Partnership is that this is about patients, it's about people. It's not about beds, it's about how do we maximise the resource that we have as a Health and Social Care Partnership to provide the best service we can for as many people as possible. And Julie White encapsulates it within her paper where she talks about numbers, and I think Councillor Scobie mentioned, you know, it's not just about numbers, but I do think that there's an emotional aspect to this within communities. I think it's really important that we do have a facility that is as close to home for as many people as possible. However, it has to be within the sort of confines of the ability to actually service that, as well as to service the rest of the wider community. I feel that this is an operational matter that certainly those of us who have been in disciplined organisations previously would feel aggrieved if the council was to come and tell us how we should be doing our business. I think we have to allow the experts and the people and the professionals to get on with what it is that they do best, which is have their experience and expertise and apply it to the situations they find themselves in. I do think that the needs of communities is important amongst this, and I do think that there needs to be consultation, and I do think there has to be transparency, because it's really important that people aren't led to believe one thing whilst other actions are taking place. So I'd agree that we do need the consultation and the transparency. However, we can't allow our community's emotional drivers to dictate what is the best way of servicing our communities. Clearly, as I said earlier, we want as many facilities as close to home to allow as many people to access them as possible, but that has to be reasonable. And the situation that we have here is that if we were to open the cottage hospitals tomorrow, that there would be members of our communities who would suffer as a consequence. I got a paper from somebody within the NHS trying to understand the rationale. As I say, I'm not an expert, but he says there's clear evidence to support that medically fit people ready for discharge should not be in a hospital bed for the following reasons. So any sort of talk of step down is inappropriate in these circumstances, I would say. Increase of risk infection, increased risk of associated mortality, poorer health outcomes, increased risk of depression, decreased motivation for independent care, decreased ability to carry out activities of daily living. And I'm sure that many of us will have had experience of those sort of situations. But equally, in July 22, NHS England put a paper out on hospital discharge and said that people should not be routinely discharged to a community step-down bed simply to free a hospital bed, nor should they routinely be discharged to a community bed simply because home-based care is not available. So I think it's quite clear there that the professionals understand what it is that they're doing. Their focus is on the individuals, on care and on preserving life and giving people a quality of life, but a quantity of life as well. I really do appreciate the comments that Councillor Drysdale made, because she actually stole quite a lot of my thunder, believe it or not. But I do think that there are people who have died in hospital, and that's disappointing. It's tragic. It's you know, your thoughts go out to those people. But there are plans, I would say, that whereby if we were to open the cottage hospitals that are closed, I don't think the buildings will disappear. I don't think they intend to sell them off. This is my opinion rather than any fact. However, the conversations I've had are that there will be a need for them, just perhaps not as we've used them up until now. But again, that should be part of the transparency and the consultation. In relation to Councillor Dempsey's comments about what we do with schools, currently, I think in one of the councils we had, we've anticipated a £50 million deficit over 5 years for us. Currently, the IJB has a deficit of 15 million for 1 year, so that transfers to 75 million. So again, there are mounting pressures on them to sort of manage that as well. I'm reluctant to support the motion as it stands at the moment. However, I do feel that Councillor Drysdale's amendment may well be a way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. We now have Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Convener. Fully supportive of Willie and Dougie's. The only two problems I see with Where's the funding going to come from? Is it going to come from the Scottish Government if we open them back up? And I know that at present all staff are out working in the community. Would there be a problem with a recruitment drive, getting folk back into work? Because I think at present social care are struggling to get workers anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Stitt. I now have Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Convener, and my thanks to all the members that have spoken on this. I think it's really imperative that we have a space that we can express these views, recognising that perhaps sometimes the responses aren't within our gift, which, looking at the motion is calling on the Chief Executive to go forward with an action. I think it's really important that we get the amendment circulated so we can all have a look at that. And I was disappointed not to be able to make the meeting in Newton Stewart. Unfortunately, by the time I got an invitation, plans had already been made, but I do understand it was, there was a huge amount of public support there. And, as an elected member of the community, it's absolutely imperative that I can hear those messages and take them forward. I do welcome the fact that each and every one of us across the chamber today has the opportunity to speak with Jeff Ace on Friday as part of the discussions, ongoing discussions. So I think we should all take that opportunity to maybe explore some of these options. And I think personally, one of the issues that I have experienced is the lack of communication, because there's good evidence as to why these hospitals perhaps aren't open right now. Having worked in care, I appreciate if you don't encourage people to move, there's sometimes loss of function. And, you want to encourage people to be as active as possible. And sometimes if you're in long-term beds in care, in hospital, loss of function, as is highlighted within the report today, is a fact. Looking online, what is community healthcare and social care consultation that took place in the summer, it states 5 in 10 people in cottage hospitals could have been supported in the most appropriate setting elsewhere. So, there's lots of data. However, if our communities aren't told this, if the information isn't explained and there's not clear communication, then there's a void which communities will then fill, and perhaps misinformation is sometimes perpetuated. So I have asked, sorry, another point I just wanted to sort of reiterate, we do have to reflect that our region is vast. There's centres of population, but for those in the outlying rural areas, there needs to be mitigation put in place. It's not always appropriate that somebody, say, down in the southern Machars can get all the way to Dumfries for potentially respite or palliative care. And these certainly are 2 points that I would absolutely support, the palliative care and respite, I think, being crucial. There is also, what has not been mentioned, the issue of GP services. And in order to open hospitals, you need to have doctors willing and able to cover that. So I think if we're looking for better communication, we need to understand what is the cover for doctors and GPs in covering hospitals, because I've heard conflicting information. I don't know which is right. I don't know if doctors are willing to work in the cottage hospitals or not. I simply don't have that information. But often it does come down to communication. One of the points that I had asked for at the start of the council term is that we return back to having localities meetings with elected members. It's all very well having a regional meeting, which we've got on Friday, but in previous council term, we certainly, and I'll use Wigtonshire as an example, once a quarter we had a localities meeting with the staff on the ground within our localities, and that was vital for understanding how our GP services were, how our dental services were, what was happening with cottage hospitals, and it was a really useful point. So if there is opportunity to have more discussion, more dialogue, certainly that would be something that I'd be really keen to push, that we have those locality meetings reinstated, and it'll be something that I will be asking for again on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hagman. Councillor Dryborough.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair, and I echo a lot of what Councillor McFarlane actually said, and but I do support the motion going forward. The issue here, of course, is we talked about communities all the time, and community planning is really important in all of this. I'm just wondering what other things can the community partnership actually can do to help the situation moving forward. I think what's risen here is, there's perhaps a lack of understanding of what type of artificial intelligence can be used, what type of equipment can be used, and things like that. But I'm supportive of opening the cottage hospitals and using them for something. I think that would support the communities round about to enhance that. But I'm a bit unclear as to what the community planning partnership is actually doing to support the staffing issues. That's seen right across the region. It's seen right across the different sectors within the region, and it's something that Malcolm Johnson mentioned earlier on about the recruitment and retention of staff in this particular area as well. So I think for us, we need to really understand what the community planning partnership is doing about this, as well as the council. I don't think it's the council's place to run hospitals operationally. That would never be the position that we would actually be in. But what sort of things can we do to support things moving forward? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dryborough. Councillor Brodie.
Thanks, Leader. Here we go again. Jim Dempster talked about a threat to community hospitals 20 years ago. I think it's only about 10 years ago there was an R campaign, or Health Board move consultation to close community hospitals from Langham, Annan, right across the region. But the communities all along have said these hospitals are important to us. Healthcare in the community is where it all starts, where prevention of bad health outcomes start, where people can be supported to get back into the community. It's all there, and I think that's got to be reflected. So there we are. It's all, as the Councillor said, it's all about people. And it's well evidenced that people who are in hospital for a considerable time, far from home, without visitors, are likely to have a less positive outcome. And I think that's important. But who should we, he says we should listen to the officials. Should we listen to the bureaucrats who are influenced by money? Or should we listen to the health professionals in the nurses in the Royal Infirmary who said things are at a crisis point, people are occupying beds, they're occupying beds, acute beds, which are very expensive things to service, when they could be in the community hospitals being supported on the way home. Yes, there is a staffing crisis, but it's the NHS's job to allocate the staff in the right places, and perhaps the staffing allocation is in the wrong place. So let's have a debate about this. We're having a debate, and let's see our cottage hospitals having an important role once again in our communities in the coming years. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brodie. Okay, I don't have any other hands up to speak so far. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Councillor Inglis.
Thanks, Convener. I'd like to thank Councillor Scobie and Councillor Campbell for bringing this to full council, and fully support the motion, and I also support the amendment by Councillor Drysdale. I did attend the meeting on Saturday, and the feeling within that hall, and it was a broad section of the community, it was very evident that there was anger, and it was very evident that there was huge support for that community cottage hospital to reopen to some extent. I think the cottage hospital sit right at the heart of communities, and we need to ensure that the service provision that comes out of cottage hospital stays within that community. Going forward, I think we need something better. We need better service provision within those communities. But in the meantime, there's a gap, there's a void. And that void needs to be filled. We can't wait to the autumn of next year. I think that's unacceptable to wait till autumn next year to get an answer on what they're going to do with these facilities. For me, that's just not, my constituents will not accept that. One particular constituent who, shall we say, was in advanced years, was really angry and very worried that the service provisions that she'd been used to coming out of that hospital were not going to be there for her. And I think that was a general feeling right across the board in that room. So I fully support this, and I think we should be putting pressure on Jeff Ace and his team to at least be honest and give us some form of plan for the cottage hospitals. Give us an idea of what he can deliver out of those cottage hospitals now or in the next 6 months, rather than us sitting waiting on this for another year to be told we're going to have to sit on it for another 3 or 4 months before we can give you a decision. I've called them 2 or 3 times or emailed them over the last 18 months, and it's always just kicked down the road again. You know, well, we've got to wait till we're out of COVID. It's being used for COVID injections and one thing and another. I'm sorry, but that doesn't wash with the people that stopped me in the street. They now want to see this cottage hospital back providing the services, or at least some of the services within the community. One of them was palliative care. Palliative care now is Stranraer or Dumfries or in the home. And I've had experience recently of somebody who was a young person who died at home, and it was a huge strain on the family. Great support from the staff, but it was a huge strain on the family for them to deal with that. And they would have preferred the hospital to be opened. So I think, yeah, there is emotional ties with the cottage hospitals. But I think it's community ties. It's what makes the community. It's what gives elderly people that sense of security within their community. So I fully support this. And I'll keep putting pressure on Jeff Ace till I get an answer as to what he intends to do with Newton Stewart Hospital, and we should be doing the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ingalls. Now, any other contributors? Councillor Jameson.
Yeah, I won't take long. The key issue, as I see it, is staff, skilled staff, and it's a common thread across all our sectors. We're short of people, we're short of staff, so we need to... Oh, sorry,
apologies.
My mistake.
Councillor Jameson, if you could just maybe
Apologies.
move closer to the mic, thank you.
Sorry, one of the key issues is obviously staff, and we can't conjure up staff just like that. There is for the Ukrainians, there is a 3-year right to work in this country. That's maybe something we can look at, but attracting staff and training staff and professionalising staff is a huge challenge across all sectors. So the fundamental thing, the message I would take forward from this is how do we get more people working in care, particularly in home care. And that's already been addressed by the Social Services Committee and the NHS, but for me that is the most important thing. Buildings are buildings, but it's people that look after people, and we really need to take that as the most important route to getting some sort of forward actions to look after folk that are needing the help.
Thank you, Councillor Jameson. So, Councillor Hill.
Can I just quickly say I do fully support the motion and what David, Councillor Ingalls and what Pauline Drysdale have said as well. I think, you know, the staff would be looking after, say on a ward, 8 patients, could take 2 staff for 24 hours, do a 12-hour shift. You're looking after more patients within a cottage hospital than you are going out from house to house, you know, having half an hour with a person. You know, you could be having 8 hours with those 8 people. I do feel that the lack of cottage hospitals in a community will affect people's mental health and well-being. And with us being a council that wants to support people's health and well-being on recovery from COVID, I think that we need to pull together and be strong on this and support the cottage hospitals staying open. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I appreciate, I'd like to go back to the mover of the notice of motion, because it's your right to respond to, well, what you've heard. But we do have what's effectively a proposed amendment to the last sentence, if you like, the last paragraph. Unfortunately, at the start of the meeting, I said nothing to do with the business of the meeting should be posted in MS Teams, which is part of my script, which I have to read out. So I'm wondering if we should circulate that Teams text so that elected members can maybe take a few minutes to consider it. And then if that's okay with the mover, we can come back, and if you want to maybe take on board some of the points of that. But would members be happy to do that? And we can actually circulate the text so they can compare it and consider it in light of the notice of motion, and then come back to the chamber and make a determination. Procedural question, Councillor Ingalls?
Sorry, it was actually to go back to something I forgot to mention. It was Councillor McFarlane mentioned that he wasn't an expert. None of us are here on this subject. However, local GPs are, and all the local GPs, both retired and practising, fully support the opening of the cottage hospitals, and I think it's worth noting that. Thank you.
Thanks for that. So if we can arrange maybe for a copy of the amendment text to be circulated to members, and we'll take a short... Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Dennerley, I've just seen your hand up there, so feel free to come in.
Thank you very much, Convener, and it's very important to give us an opportunity to read through that. I appreciate you giving us the time to consider that before the decision is made. So thank you very much for giving us the time, and to the interpreters, thank you.
Okay, so if we can, I'm just sort of going to check, how quickly could we have that circulated to members in printed form? Thank you. So I think everybody's going to get an email, but I think we'll still need to have time to reflect on that. So if we maybe take For taking the time to consider the words as supplied. I'll now go back to the mover of the motion to see if they'd be willing to accept that as a change to the last sentence as outlined to form part of the sort of wider council motion, if you like.
Chair, could you indulge and I'll respond to some of the comments that have been made, if that's okay, before I come
That's your right, Councillor Scobie, go for it.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up, and I'll come back to the amendment as proposed by Pauline Drysdale in terms of nurses who are deployed into the community. It is undoubtedly the case that we do need a lot more care workers, and we've got to do everything within our powers as a council and the authority responsible to try and recruit as many care workers as possible. And the starting point for us, as is contained in the motion, is to value those care workers, but give them a decent pay. Have a starting minimum wage of £15 per hour, rather than seeing them going off to fill shelves in supermarkets. And I'm not demeaning shop workers, but we need to value our care workers, and we need to pay them a proper wage. And where the money comes from, Davy, then that's for government in terms of where we've got nurses striking. I'm sure that'll quickly follow. Perhaps that care workers may follow the same road. Just in terms of Andy, could I first say, I'm delighted with the responses and the support that the speakers have given, even those that were reluctant to support the motion. There was still support for it. And it's not a matter of telling the NHS how to do their business. As I referred to the document that was just agreed last week in participation and engagement, and I'll read it again in page 5 of the document. Engagement and participation work must allow local people to influence how services are designed and delivered. I would hope that's not just to patronise the community, but they have the power. And it goes on to say that they feel they have the power. And that's why we had so many people turning out on Saturday, 200 and more people expressing their anger, as Davy Ingalls said, because they want to see their cottage hospitals reopened. So, when Andy refers to it, and telling them, we are the elected members. We are supposed to be community leaders, but we must listen to what the communities are telling us. And the motion is asking the NHS to examine the services that these cottage hospitals could provide to the community and for the community. I noted what Katie was saying in terms of lack of communication. This consultation started in January 2022, and I would defy any member in this chamber to say when they have ever been consulted since January 2022. What the motion did was it's prompted them, the Health Board and all others, to enter into consultation, but it's got to be meaningful consultation, and they're going to try it between January 2023 and March of 2023. When they started it in January 2022, and no one has heard anything of that consultation. So there is an issue there in terms of how they conduct the consultation, but at the heart of it, it must go to the communities so that they can engage and participate, and they can influence and design the services that they want. They should be able to do that, and that's no matter of telling them what to do. George Jimison spoke of staff recruitment. Undoubtedly, I've already spoken about that. Richard Brodie spoke in terms of different opinions within the health profession. So one person saying that it's not suitable for this, when we have another health professional saying it is suitable for step down. So in terms of the responses, as I say, I think we're all in support of the motion and made many good points in it. In Turning to the amendment, we're quite happy to accept the amendment on the basis of, and we've spoken to Pauline and she's quite happy, where it says closer can reopen as a matter of urgency for the following type of services, inclusive of palliative care, IV beds, support services such as kidney dialysis, respite and step-down facilities. And Pauline goes on, rather than those awaiting much-needed care packages. If we get it right in terms of recruitment into the care sector, we will then start to fill those 3,000 unmet hour needs. So in that respect, we were just asking, Pauline's agreed to insert types of service inclusive of palliative care, IV beds, support services such as kidney dialysis, respite and step-down facilities. If that's, we're quite happy to accept the amendment for those words.
Okay, thank you. So, and just I'll just cast an eye over to Pauline. Is that does that capture the words you were wanting to include in the notice?
Thank you very much, Convener. I'm just checking, sorry to be pedantic, Willie, but I'm not 100% sure what step-down facility is. And I'm just looking it up on Google, which is a bit embarrassing. Step-down facility means care provided by short-stay transitional units being a substitute for continued hospital stay and serving patients whose illness demands significant medical involvement and skilled nursing care of more than 3 hours on average per day, as well as pharmacy and laboratory support. So I'm just a bit concerned the two might cross over. Do you know, from a council perspective, as a motion? No? Is that different to removing
I think the key word in this
care packages, as long as it's not those people waiting for care packages, the step-down care is an actual needed facility where you still need medical intervention. Yeah, well, I'm fine with that then.
Okay, so just
thank you.
I know there's a bit of discussion going on, but okay, so I think we've got I suppose an agreed way forward in terms of the notice of motion as amended. What I might suggest, if it's useful, clearly it's the IJB. It might be more appropriate to at least include writing to the chair of the IJB. I appreciate that the motion's asking to call on the Chief Executive of NHS-D&G, but I think it would be probably helpful to write to the chair of the IJB, especially in terms as they would oversee and give direction to both bodies anyway. So if members would be happy with that. Sorry, Councillor Hagman, just a question on this, yeah.
Yeah, it's a question on just in terms of the motion. I'm very well aware that the £15 per hour is something that unions have been asking as part of National Care Service. And I'm just looking for clarification that in terms of the Council's submission to the National Care Service consultation, that there's no conflict within that, because I'm very well aware that the £15 an hour is a figure that unions have been calling for in the development of the National Care Service, which clearly we have a position as a council. So it's just to ensure that there's no conflict in that. Other than that, I'm quite happy. I mean, the key word I'm looking at this is to explore. We're not demanding that anything is, it's an exploration. That's what we're asking for. So just to check that there's no conflict. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hagman. I see Lillian's joined the call, but I think I'll pass over to Chief Exec and see how best you want to direct that. Thank you.
I'm happy for Lillian to come in in terms of the question around the response. I mean, I see this as a call for rather than seeking commitment to. So on that basis, I don't think there's any particular concern from that perspective. And, there are a number of mechanisms for agreeing pay for care workers depending on who the employer is. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a call for, it's exploring, it's not seeking a firm commitment to on the part of the IJB or any part of that at this stage. But I'll if we can invite Lillian in, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Chief Exec. Councillor Hagman, it won't have a conflict for us within the response. I'll clarify that point. The only other point I would wish to raise for members is that the salary is set by Scotland Excel, which is obviously negotiated via COSLA. So it's just a point to note. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that clarification, are members happy to agree the notice of motion as amended and including the chair of the IJB as one of the recipients of lobbying? Okay. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. That takes us on to item 14, which is our second notice of motion today, to do with mould and damp, registered social landlords and their response to mould and damp. And we have the motion by Councillor Emma Jordan, seconded by Councillor Keith Walters. First of all, before we actually get into any discussion about this, can we first agree to remove delegation for Economy and Resources Committee so that we can go forward? Thank you. So we have Jamie Little, Strategic Housing Investment and Regeneration Team, I think available on Teams to assist members with any questions. But Councillors Jordan and Walters, if you please propose and second your motion, after which I'll invite contributions and questions from other members. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. So this motion would confirm our position as Strategic Housing Authority. I'm sure that many of us have come across cases concerning mould and damp in RSL properties. And Keith and I have been speaking to some of the RSLs, and we're already aware that they are doing a lot to deal with that. And I think that they have had an increase in cases since the news was on about the two-year-old. So it's all positive. If I could read through the motion for you, and then we can go to discuss or whatever. So the Labour group are saddened to hear about the death of two-year-old Awab Ishaq in December 2020. Awab died as a direct result of mould and damp in his Rochdale home. Fazal Abdallah, Awab's father, had called Rochdale Barrowide Housing many times about the property. Unfortunately, this didn't prevent the death of Awab. We want to ensure this can never happen again, and we call for RSLs to take proactive response to all reports of mould and damp, to include investigating all reports of mould and damp, identifying appropriate support for customers who struggle to pay heating bills, investigating repeat reports of mould in a robust manner, including carrying out full damp surveys, installing environmental sensors to establish cause, and completing any work required. Inspect all reports of mould within 20 working days, although I have to say at this point, I believe that the RSLs are actually beating that target and have a much tighter target, so that's great news. Responding to all repeat reports of mould within 7 working days. Reports of mould must be followed up after repairs have been carried out to ensure that the issue has been fixed. Educating customers on adequate ventilation. The property can play a part in causing the issue, however, human behaviour can add to this. Carry out a ventilation assessment on the property, and how can the moisture be extracted from the rooms where the issues are occurring. We are aware that cases of mould and damp are highly likely to increase through the winter months, and especially in the current financial climate, where many people will struggle to pay energy bills. Ultimately, if people cannot heat their homes, mould and damp will occur, as there will be an excess amount of moisture in the home. We want to ensure all RSLs have a robust, proactive approach to dealing with cases. We also ask all local RSLs to work with the council and other agencies to ensure support can be provided to people who find themselves unable to heat their homes, particularly as we take forward our own cost of living strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. And Councillor Walters to second the motion.
Yeah, I just want to be brief and to second the motion. We recognise that although we're not directly responsible, a number of us as councillors have had this issue raised with us, and it's important that people from the community see that we are actually concerned with it. And even just by raising this already, we've had contact with the RSLs who've been in touch, and it's really good that we can make them aware that the council is focusing on this issue and is aware of their needs to perform what they're supposed to be doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to members for questions and contributions to this. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you very much, Convener. Thank you for the motion. I was just going to ask a question. In my eyes, Lorburn is also considered to be an RSL with obviously less powers for the council to control, but were they considered as part of this agenda item, and if not, could they be included as well? How does that work really is the question I'm asking. Thank you.
I think at this point I'll maybe bring in James, because obviously when we talk about RSLs, that means all the RSLs in the region. But James, I don't know if obviously there's a report that's associated with this notice of motion, but could you maybe assist Councillor Drysdale in terms of the RSLs in our region and how we include them? Yeah,
sorry, Chair, can I come back in? And that would include Cunningham Housing Partnership and, what's that one? Home Group as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so Jamie, would you be able to provide a complete list of all the housing associations and the registered social landlords in the region to assist Councillor Drysdale?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Drysdale. The intention of the motion is obviously to write to all registered social landlords. I could provide a list, but it's quite extensive. There's a number of them, from Wheatley Homes South with over 10,500 properties down to some smaller registered social landlords with literally a handful. It will include, obviously, as I mentioned, Wheatley Homes South, Lawburn Housing, Cunningham House Association, Riverside Scotland, Home Group, who are the main registered social landlords with hundreds of properties, if not thousands. And yeah, obviously Lawburn is certainly one of those we'll be looking to engage with in regards to this letter. And just probably to add to the report as well, is that I have already engaged with a number of the registered social landlords around this issue. They are carrying out quite a bit of work, as you would expect them to have done since this was recently in the news. Wheatley Homes South are themselves putting in place new processes and procedures to ensure a robust response. And Lawburn Housing Association have just, on the 12th of December, published additional information on their website for the support of their tenants. So work is already underway to try and manage this risk.
Thanks, Jamie. Does that help, Councillor Drysdale?
Yes, and Jamie, thank you very much for that concise answer and for all that you're doing to help with this situation, which we know is rising across the region and causing a few problems. And also, while I'm on the speaker, sorry everyone, I would also like to ask, could we as a council do some kind of marketing campaign to help tenants who often don't know how to manage their properties in terms of pouring oil down the drains and other such items? If we can't look at that today, maybe in the future, because there's sometimes a little bit of confusion with all of these things, as well as how to manage damp, ventilation, etc. going forward. So that would be much appreciated if we could bring that back at a later date. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. And the point about education, I think, is probably tied into the notice of motion, in the sense that tenants need to know or have advice readily available for how to best manage their home situation. But yeah, I'm sure we can bring that back. So, Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, I welcome this motion, and Faisal Awab's has really just heightened the situation with his death and the dampness there. But this is a problem that has been here for years and years and years. And Jimmy may remember his predecessor, Jim O'Neill, met with the DGHP regime at the time, and it was to look at how do we move into properties that just, you know, it's like saying to the tenants, turn up your heating and open your window at the same time, and how you manage and so forth, where of course there was an education, but there was no logic to that in terms of turning up heating and the heating going out the window. So in my, as far as I'm concerned, I think as a council, it's not our responsibility in the first instance, but we've got to be proactive in terms of other energy sources and I know that's on the agenda, but I would really like to see that accelerated so that we can look at district heating systems in terms of how we can change some of these heating systems that are already there in the estates that may contribute towards the dampness and so forth, so that people don't need to turn up their heating even if they could afford it, which they can't. So we're going to face even greater problems. So it's to try and address the problem in the immediate, short and long term. And I see looking at alternative sources of energy and heating as a way forward through district heating systems. So I would hope we would take that on board in terms of what the motion's asking as an action for us to look at as a council to try and assist and contribute towards the improvements in the housing schemes.
Thanks, Councillor Scobie. So any other speaker? Councillor Dryburgh, sorry, I've seen you in the chat there.
Chair, Andy Ferguson was before me.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Ferguson, I didn't see your hand there. Thank you.
I was before Councillor Scobie as well, but never mind, you're doing a grand job, convener.
You've never been before me, Andy.
I just in the queue for food, Wally. Jamie, I'm wondering if you can answer something for me here. I don't think anyone would disagree with this motion at all, right? But I think we might need to add something on this, because the last couple of sentences, the last sentence, it kind of suggests that we're going to support, right? Now, we've no, keep me right, Jamie, we don't have a housing revenue account, so we've got no income coming from any of these houses whatsoever. So either we're going to have to support within the existing budget, or we're going to have to allocate you some different money to take this forward. So what I'm going to suggest here, if it's okay with Emma and Keith, would be just to add a sentence in there and to consider this under the budget allocation as it comes forward for February, because we can't just we can't just support in name only and then not be prepared to put anything into that service. So I'll be coming to Jamie first, and that would be really helpful, Stephen, and then maybe I'll then formally move.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. Jamie, I don't know if you can maybe provide detail on that comment there from Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. Obviously, the council will be trying to support a number of these tenants in a lot of different ways. You know, the issues around fuel poverty and maximising people's income are areas where the council can seek to influence, and also through the work of the Cost of Living Board, where we can hopefully try and identify some further assistance to provide to tenants. In terms of a comment on the budget setting process, obviously that's something for agreement with members. But you know, certainly the council is seeking here, from my understanding of the motion, to work very much in partnership with the registered social landlords to see how we can collaboratively try and assist, particularly when it comes to the cost of heating homes.
Can I come back in, Stephen?
Okay, I'll allow it this time, Andy.
Right, thanks. Yeah, I understand that, Jamie, but not everything here about damn houses is to do with lack of heating. A lot of it's bad design, roof faults. You know, there's a whole raft of things here that changing the heating that Wally was talking about wouldn't have an impact on it at all. So all I'm saying here is, do we need to actually consider this as part of the budget setting process? That's the point I'm getting at here, because there's no point saying you will go down this route and then you having to come back to us in 6 or 8 weeks' time and saying, well, I've not got enough money for that, we'll need to do something else. So all I'm asking is, do we consider it as part of that budget setting process? Make sure that there's at least an element in there that helps helps the landlords, and more especially helps the tenants to actually make sure they're getting what they're entitled to.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. I would suggest probably, you know, we have already prioritised addressing the cost of living crisis, and I know there's routes by which we can take those concerns through the budget process. We've also recently designated part of the COVID response fund to also be suitable for cost of living. So it's not to say we're not making arrangements to have things in place to tackle cost of living issues, but I think this notice of motion isn't necessarily asking for that, but I think we have to be realistic about how we can actually add and strengthen our support for people who are in this situation. And I think probably the proper process for that is through the budget process, because at the moment we don't necessarily have specific figures or allocations for that. So I think we can give a commitment to do so, if that's helpful. I'll go to another speaker just now. Councillor Dryborough.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And I think there's an easier way to do it than that. I mean, obviously there's the Housing Subcommittee, which all the RSLs are actually on. And I think, to have a discussion with the RSLs, and there are private landlords on that particular thing as well, which, could cause problems. I think, the situation is the landlords, the RSLs actually have, their own funding issues as well as we do as a council, and they've also had to follow some real challenging times in the past year or so, where there's been a halt on increasing rents and things like that. I think the discussion needs to happen first with the RSLs. I think the RSLs are aware of the situations with regards condensation, damp, and anything else. But as part of that overall thing, Jamie, which has just come to recently an APSI issue, is that even the problems with passive house issues with condensation is actually happening now. And that's about the education part of it, where people can actually, not use the passive house properly, the open windows and things like that, which are not meant to do. And again, that's what I see as part of the education. We need to understand what the issues are. The RSLs understand they've got a maintenance programme that they've got to get through, and they will have budgeted that for in their business case. But I think a discussion at the Housing Subcommittee first is probably the best way forward with this. And as you say, Convener, we're discussing all the support we can get through the cost of living group as well. So I'm happy to suggest that.
Thanks, Councillor Drybrough. Just Jamie, I'm just wondering, I think now we have the Strategic Housing Forum as opposed to a housing sub, but obviously that's I think that's led by RSL. So maybe if you could maybe assist Councillor Drybrough in terms of like how that conversation might be taken forward.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Drybrough. In terms of you're correct. We do have a strategic housing forum. The chair is Councillor Marshall as Vice Chair of Economy and Resources Committee, so it is led by the council. And obviously, I'm happy to pick up a conversation with Councillor Marshall just in terms of holding that as an agenda item on the next forum. I'm pretty sure he'd be happy to support that, but I can see Councillor Marshall's on the call if he wants to come in on that point.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chair. No, it was just really on that point. I think there is an ideal opportunity. I think the main thrust of the motion is to actually see what we can do to ensure that, all RSLs within our region have a robust and proactive approach to tackling mould and damp. And an ideal way of doing this would be actually having it as an agenda item on a future strategic housing partnership. And we can discuss that, and we can also monitor progress. So I think, I've already spoken to Jamie, and I think this was one of the ways that we could proactively deal with this issue to try and address some of the problems that we experience in this region. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Marshall. That's helpful. And Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Regarding what a previous councillor said about probably equipment, well, I must admit dehumidifiers are excellent for doing that. They take the moisture out of the air. It's like you put it in a room, it's like a bit large magnet. It draws the air through the machine and condenses the water. But as when the air leaves the machine, it actually warms the air up and helps keep the house warmer. So, and they're quite inexpensive to run. So it's maybe something for the future in houses to maybe trial something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. All good suggestions. So any other members wishing to speak on the notice of motion? I think I'm getting a sense that we broadly support this, and there's already an action there to raise it at the Strategic Housing Partnership chaired by Councillor Marshall. And there's clearly a bit of awareness raising that we'll need to do in terms of education and working with partners to do that so that tenants know how best to manage their home situation. But in terms of the notice of motion itself, are we happy to agree that? Okay, thank you very much. I think we now go into the approval of the minutes. So you should all have your sheets in front of you with names and so forth on it. This is item 15. I'll just go quickly through them. This is minutes for approval. Castle Douglas Common Good Fund Subcommittee, 23rd of November 22.
Happy to approve.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Dalbeattie Common Good Fund Subcommittee, 28th of September.
Happy to approve.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Economy and Resources Committee, 1st of September.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Economy and Resources Committee, 15th of November.
Yep, happy to move that one.
Happy to second.
Finance Procurement Transformation Committee, 8th of November.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
George D. Grant Memorial Fund Subcommittee, 7th of September.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Local Review Body, 18th of August 2022.
Happy to move. Happy to second.
Local Review Body, 9th of November 22.
Moved.
Happy to second.
Pensions Subcommittee, 29th of November 22.
Moved.
Second.
Stewardship Area Committee, 16th of November 22.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Wigton Area Committee, 2nd of November 22.
Delighted to move.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. And then item 16 is our minutes for noting. Are we happy to note those minutes? Okay, thank you very much. So, final item, I've got no other urgent items of business needing a decision. This concludes our business for today. Thank you very much for all your contributions and for adding time to the meeting. I would very much like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.